Time right now is 9.
Mr. Deputy Clerk, whenever we are ready. Good morning. Welcome to the September 13, 2025 County Board meeting. I'm Board Chair Takis Karantonis. I'm joined by my colleagues, Vice Chair Matt Ferranti, Maureen Coffey, Susan Cunningham, and Julius J.D. Spain Sr. Thank you. It's always refreshing to see this room populated, full with people. And thank you for joining us today. It is fall. We have, we were in recess, theoretical in a way. I mean, in terms of public meetings during the month of August. A lot has happened. I want to recognize that. First and foremost, the last week was a terrible week for our entire nation. I put this little reminder that it was 9/11. Not just two days ago, not only to keep the remembrance after 24 years after this traumatic event for our nation, but also in remembrance of the fact that when this happened, we could unite as a nation behind one flag and one president, and actually the leadership of this country, including the president, cared about uniting Americans. Which didn't happen last week. Nevertheless, violence is unacceptable, especially in a political context. And so I want to recognize that. Previously to that, the entire month has been extremely upsetting for most of our residents, myself included. We've seen the federal government taking over the District of Columbia, the nation's capital, our immediate neighbor. This is, in my opinion, not the kind of action that withstands scrutiny by any reasonable or fair judgment. I'm, of course, vertically opposed to that. But that shows you the tension field that we are navigating, both as your local government and, of course, as our community as a whole. So, the first part of this meeting is always public comments for in-person speakers. The podium is here. The height can be adjusted using the up and down arrows to your right. If you are submitting documents as part of your testimony, please hand them to our clerk. Today, this meeting is led by our deputy clerk, Mr. Davis. Thank you, sir. For remote speaker, please keep your microphones muted and your cameras off until you are called on to speak. We have two Spanish language interpreters in the room who are available during the public comment portion of this meeting. Buenos días. You can introduce yourself. Thank you. You may see us occasionally, needing to get up and stretch our legs. There are speakers in the back and monitors, so we can always continue to see and follow the meeting. It is September, and once again, I want to remind everybody that resources for federal workers and our immigrant neighbors are available. If you go to the county website and you type in the prompt, in the search prompt, immigrant or federal worker, you will be directed to all the kinds of services that Arlington County is supporting and providing. And you know that this government always will have your back, and I believe the vast majority of our community is doing exactly the same. Mr. Deputy Clerk, we can proceed on public comment.
Yes, sir.
Time is reserved for public comment for topics that are related that are not related to recent or upcoming public hearings. To help ensure fairness and efficiency, we have a one speaker per topic rule. If you're here with a coordinated group, we ask you to please designate one representative to speak on that topic. And the representative, of course, can note that there are others present who share your views. Our goal is to hear a broad range of perspectives while keeping the regular meeting on schedule. If you would like to share more detailed input or engage in deeper discussion with us, we encourage you to attend an Open Door Monday session or email us, countyboard@arlingtonva.us. Many of you already know that more meetings and opportunities of detailed conversations will ensue from that kind of communication. Please see our clerks, Mr. Davis and Mr. Kushner, if you have any questions. And I believe we are ready to hear from our speakers. Mr. Clerk, if you can call the first two.
Absolutely. First speaker is going to be Audrey Clement, followed by Mr. Eric Rubio.
Good morning, Dr. Clement.
Is this on? Hello?
Yes, it is.
Welcome, members of the board and the county manager. I'm Audrey Clement, independent candidate for county board. At the July 19th county board meeting, Takis Karantonis blasted me for quoting acting ICE director Todd Lyons in a Fox News story. Lyons was angered that the sheriff's office had released David Cabrera, a twice-deported Guatemalan sex offender, from jail to a courthouse street instead of ICE custody. I agreed with Lyons, arguing that Arlington's policy of non-cooperation with ICE raises public safety issues, since convicts released from jail often revert to crime just to survive. Karantonis accused me of defending the indefensible for promoting enforcement of U.S. immigration laws. He also declared that the Fox News story I quoted as false and misleading, without saying what in it was actually non-factual. Finally, Takis accused me of racial insensitivity for failing to appreciate the fear inspired by ICE in the immigrant community. Takis concluded his remarks with, "I feel personally, as an immigrant, offended by how insensitive your comments were." What Takis fails to appreciate is the distinction between legal and illegal immigration. The former I endorse, the latter I do not, because the principal victims of illegal immigration are legal immigrants, like the 16-year-old that Cabrera attempted to rape in 2014. Crime and unfair competition for jobs and wages driven by illegal immigration diminishes everybody's quality of life, especially legal immigrants. The organizations that profit most from illegal immigrants are businesses that exploit them for low-wage labor and 501c3s that get government grants to assist them. In fact, government-funded aid to illegals comes at a net taxpayer cost of $150 billion annually, and that's a high price to pay for increased crime and unfair competition.
Your time is up. Thank you. The next.
Next speaker is going to be Mr. Eric Rubio, followed by Mr. Thomas Marzol.
Good morning, Mr. Rubio.
Good morning. Morning, members of the County Board, Mr. Manager. I would like to draw your attention to the annual celebration of National Arts and Humanities Month this coming October. The national advocacy organization Americans for the Arts describes this month-long annual celebration as having three objectives. First, to focus on equitable access to the arts at all levels of government, including the local level. Second, to increase diverse community participation in the arts. And third, and perhaps most importantly, to raise awareness of the positive impact that arts and humanities can have in our communities and our lives in an ever-changing world. Arlington County is home to a breadth and depth of both professional and volunteer arts and cultural organizations that provide an impressive array of programming in many of our neighborhoods around the county in all months of the year, as well as being home to many arts professionals who are active throughout the national capital region, myself included. I would ask that this body consider a formal proclamation of Arts and Humanities Month in Arlington County, coextensive with the national observance in October. And I would further asks that the county board and the county government commit to a whole of government effort to promote the positive impact that the arts and humanities can have for all who live in, work in, or simply visit Arlington County, and to increase the resources available to the arts and cultural community that provides this programming. Thank you for your time this morning and for your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Rubio. The next speaker, please.
All right, next speaker is going to be Mr. Thomas Morzal, followed by Jane Green.
Good morning, Ms. Marshall.
Good morning. Good morning, board members and county staff. My name is Tom Marzol. I'm the treasurer of the North Roslyn Civic Association. I'm here today representing our organization in strong support of the Cresmont Apartments proposal at 1817 North Quinn Street. The comments I'm sharing today were also sent in a letter to County Manager Mark Schwartz with county staff and all 5 board members copied. I'm here to speak in person because we want to underscore our seriousness and commitment to the issue. This project is currently in, I believe, planning phase 2 under county staff review. North Roslyn citizens are disappointed by the slowness and resistance the applicant has encountered from county staff. Our civic association has worked with the applicant for 5 years and continually receives overwhelming residential support. Our neighborhood already hosts nearly 1,500 affordable rental units within a half-mile radius, and we welcome this project for its exceptional balance of new housing and public benefits. This development delivers far more than typical projects. Beyond adding 193 new homes in a highly transit-accessible area, it features an innovative transfer of development rights TDR partnership with Arlington Affordable Homes and Communities that will unlock approximately 120 trapped affordable units unavailable for decades. These will become capital for affordable housing preservation throughout Arlington, setting a precedent that could significantly expand the county's affordable housing resources. The project also provides substantial open space dedication, long-requested community amenities, and demonstrates environmental leadership through LEED Gold standards. It directly advances Arlington's affordable housing master plan and effectively implements the TDR policy. Time is critical. Every month of delay increases construction costs, threatens the affordable housing transaction, and risks losing the opportunity to unlock these 120 affordable units. North Roslyn remains very open to additional housing in our neighborhood and is eager to see this and other projects quickly approved and built. We respectfully urge you to advance this project without further delay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Marzol. The next speaker, please.
Next speaker is Jane Green, followed by Mr. John Acton. Oh, thank you.
I only have 6.
Okay.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning, Dr. Green.
Thank you. My name is Jane Green. I'm here representing a diverse group of Arlington civic organizations, including the YIMBYs of Northern Virginia Affordable Housing Alliance, Voice, Sustainable Mobility for Arlington County, the League of Women Voters Arlington and Alexandria Branch, Faith Alliance for Climate Solutions, the Sierra Club Potomac River Group, the Coalition for Smarter Growth, OSG or Our Stomping Ground, NAACP Arlington Branch, Habitat for Humanity of Washington, D.C. and Northern Virginia, the Arlington Community Foundation, and Housing and, formerly HAND. We are all united and we expect our group to grow in support of a bold, comprehensive plan. I have provided our letter, our statement here, and I'm going to give an abbreviated version in the time that I have remaining. Arlington is a diverse and inclusive world-class urban community because of its economic vibrancy and because of our community values. But Arlington's diversity and vitality are at risk from a severe housing shortage that is getting worse every year. The only way to preserve the Arlington that we love is to allow more housing. The update to the comprehensive plan is a once-in-a-generation opportunity to set the groundwork for responsible and sustainable growth with the fundamental belief that people are what make Arlington great, and that a welcoming, diverse community must allow for and encourage diverse and abundant housing to meet the needs of all Arlingtonians and those who have yet to come. Arlington has gone through monumental change in the last 150 years. The inability to change can result in stagnation. We share this vision that we've provided to you with you today as a consideration, and ask you to consider this momentous opportunity that comes from updating the comprehensive plan and the general land use plan. The tools that make this vision a reality are within your power to yield. We thank you for showing leadership, and our organizations stand ready to support you.
Thank you, Dr. Green.
Next speaker is going to be Mr. John Acton, followed by Samar Hassan.
Good morning, Mr. Acton.
Good morning. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak. You just heard someone talk about housing affordability in general. I want to give you an idea of what it's like for a family. I'm a single dad. I'm very proud of my two charming children, Gerson and Sai, who were adopted from Guatemala. We live in a house which I bought 35 years ago for $238,000. Now it's worth $1.2 million, which is just inconceivable. Current property taxes are $11,000. The kids are now 23 and 19. Harrison is disabled and on Social Security disability. Sai is in college part-time. At the end of the semester, he will have 7 credits towards a degree. Lately, we've been talking about the future. Harrison came to me the other day and said, "Dad, would you be able to donate the house to us after you die?" Thanks a lot. Neither of us will be able to afford to buy a house on our own. He's right, but I really sincerely doubt that the kids could afford property taxes and upkeep. They have friends here and a support network. They want to stay in the community which they love, but they have many fewer choices in today's high-cost housing market. How can we keep the kids who grew up here but can't afford the McMansions or the increasingly expensive condos and rentals? Doesn't being a community mean trying to make it possible for successive generations to live here, not just the millionaires, but also the people who have less money? As you plan housing priorities for the future, remember my family, and remember that the Arlington families come in all shapes and sizes, and so should our housing stock. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ackman. The next speaker, please.
All right, the next speaker is Samer Hassan, followed by Dr. Himaja Davis.
Good morning, Mr. Hassan.
Morning. Hello, and thank you for having me today. My name is Samer, and I truly appreciate that this county works to uplift and listen to the voices of its community members. Living in Arlington for about a year now has been a pleasure, but in that time, I've also noticed contradictions between the county's stated values and the reality on the ground. One of the main reasons I chose Arlington from a long list of options was the county's mission statement. On your website, you write, "Arlington will be a diverse and inclusive world-class urban community with secure, attractive residential and commercial neighborhoods where people unite to form a caring, learning, participating, sustainable community in which each person is important." In a world so often marred by horror and violence, I was moved by those words. They give me hope. I was so inspired that I applied for an apartment here on my very first day touring homes. However, after moving in, I began to notice contradictions between that vision and what I had experienced. I see billboards and ads that glorify lethality. I see white supremacists openly living here. I see state and county institutions taking taxpayer money from Arlingtonians and incentivizing a nation guilty of crimes against humanity to expand its military-industrial presence in our community. The county's values emphasize a sustainable community where every person is important, yet enabling white supremacists and genocide supporters runs counter to that promise, does it not? Are you engaging with local mosques, predominantly black churches, and immigrant-focused organizations to ask whether they truly feel valued here? Because the honest answers may be hard to hear. But this may prove to be an opportunity for growth and real change. I'd be glad to connect you with incredible organizers who are already doing the work to make Arlington a safer, more inclusive, and community-centered county where all people, regardless of race, religion, or immigration status, feel that they matter. And I must ask, what story will we tell future generations about our actions during the genocide of the Palestinian people? Will I be able to say that Arlington took a moral stand by cutting financial ties with the Israeli state in line with calls from the International Court of Justice, the International Criminal Court, Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, to say that
Mr.
Arlington
Hassan,
doubled down?
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
The next speaker, please.
All right, next speaker is going to be Dr. Himaja Davis, followed by Mr. Jacob Griffin.
Good morning, Dr. Davis.
Morning, everyone. All right. My name is Himaja Davis. I'm a physician, a mother of 2, and as of yesterday, a newly naturalized American citizen. Yay.
Congratulations.
It is deeply meaningful to me that one of my first acts as a citizen is to speak on an issue of public safety that we experienced last week in our community. Last Friday on September 5th, my family and I attended this outdoor screening of Moana at Met Park. What should have been a joyful time quickly turned dangerous when a group of young adults began intentionally throwing full water bottles, heavy objects into the crowd. One such full water bottle hit my friend and struck her in her head with high speed. My daughter, just 11 months old, who was born very premature, was sitting 2 feet away from her. As a physician, I know the devastating consequences blunt head trauma or any trauma can cause. An object like that could have permanently altered her life. It's inexcusable that these assaults happen at anyone, especially aimed at children. What troubles me the most is not just the act, but the lack of any police response. We called 911 911 immediately and followed a group of individuals while providing real-time updates to the police department. And we were shocked and appalled to learn that the Arlington Police Department declined to investigate this incident nor send an officer. There was zero response. I want to ask, what is the county's policy on pursuing violent crimes like this? Why wouldn't the police investigate? If offenders can walk away without consequence, what will stop them again? And what if they escalate? There is definite evidence there were multiple security cameras which would have caught this crime and identify the perpetrators. I don't think we have to wait for anybody to be seriously injured or dead prior to investigating incidents like this. We're failing to give our children the protection they deserve. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Davis. The next speaker, please.
All right. Next speaker is going to be Mr. Jacob Griffin, followed by Mr. William Lawson. Mr. Griffin?
Good morning.
Mr. Griffin does not look like he is here.
Check online.
Let's see.
It says in person, but maybe it's online.
There is no Jacob Griffin online either, so Chair Karantonis, I will move to the next speaker and we'll come back to Mr. Griffin.
Correct. At the end of the I see here Mr. Lawson. Good morning, Mr. Lawson.
Good morning, thank you. I'm here today as a member of Westover Baptist Church and not as an attorney. When we came out of the pandemic, this church, like a lot of churches, had lost members and had lost some of the tenant partners, and they were struggling financially. And we then had some people approach the church and they wanted to lease space. And we learned that inadvertently, the ability to have private schools and churches had been left out when the new zoning ordinance got adopted. So I'm here today to ask that, I understand it's now perhaps being worked on, and I would ask that you all make that a priority because a lot of these houses of worship are really struggling. When I met with Christian Dorsey and we were talking about this stormwater fee that Westover Baptist has a lot of parking lot and a big old building. It was built in the 1950s. And the quid pro quo for paying the stormwater fee was going to be the ability to have some tenant partners. It doesn't make any sense to have this church building sit empty all weekday when it could be put to use. We've had Swanson has had classes in the building. We had the Levine School of Music. We've had schools for children with autism. So, Mr. Manager, if possible, I'd ask you to bring that forward as quickly as you can. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Lawson. The next speaker, please.
All right, the next speaker is going to be Mr. Brendan Martin, followed by Ms. Ann Bodine.
Mr. Martin.
Mr.
Says
Martin?
in person, but maybe online.
There is no one
Then
online either.
Let's move to the next one. I see Ms. Bodine, and we will get back to Mr. Griffin, Ms. Martin, if they are available
Absolutely.
at the end of.
So I had some slides.
Good morning, Ms.
Good morning.
Bodine.
Good morning, everyone. I had some slides, if you don't mind.
And friends, I would say.
Excuse me?
Ms. Bodine and friends.
Oh. Okay, so good morning. I'm Ann Bodine. I'm here to review the county's new study for low residential areas. I represent Arlington Tree Action Group. I'm joined by reps from 22 civic associations and neighbors, all share your goal of 40% tree canopy. We don't agree that this study will get us there, however. The paramount challenge is redevelopment in residential areas. Staff has shown that impervious surface keeps growing here despite serious efforts to contain it through stormwater rules. Tellingly, 55% of that increase has come from construction of new homes, garages, and driveways in residential areas, the same areas that host 68% of our canopy. This is the elephant in the room. In 2023, the County Board agreed in its new Forestry and Natural Resources Plan to study smaller lot coverage allowances and footprints as the best way forward. The new study abandons that promise in favor of magic and myth. Let's look at this slide. The county controls the height, mass, and size of structures through zoning and imposes numerical caps on these elements. It controls stormwater by setting hydrological goals, but no limits on impervious surface, as the idea is to slow or divert runoff from the lot. Currently, driveways are counted towards both systems, but the surface area of the driveway is irrelevant in stormwater rules because it's only the hydrological properties of the driveway that matter. You are setting up a two-card monte with this new study, switching one thing out for another while you divert our attention, switching out zoning lot coverage maximums for meaningless stormwater rules. Meaningless because you say pervious driveways will count once you impose a numerical cap. This makes no sense. A pervious driveway should not count towards an impervious surface cap. Meaningless also as you ignore that many impervious areas are not suited for trees. Meaningless as there is no intent to credit trees to meet stormwater hydrological goals. This is like that trick where the magician saws a woman in half, but using trees, and the trees won't survive in real life. Next slide. Next slide. ATAG is asking you to go back to the promised zoning lot coverage study. Don't hopelessly muddle the current distinction between separate controls for structures and stormwater, and give builders stormwater credit for trees. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bodine. The next speaker, please.
Absolutely. Next speaker is going to be Mr. Akash Patel, followed by Mr. Joshua Handler.
Good morning, Mr. Patel.
Good morning, Chair Karantanis, members of the board. My name is Akash Patel. I'm the Program Development Associate at Housing Rights Initiative, which is a nonprofit organization that aims to promote fair housing with an office here in Northern Virginia. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you all today. Over the past months, our organization has been conducting fair housing testing on rental properties across Arlington County to better understand how housing voucher holders are treated in the local rental market. We called all active listings, rental listings within the voucher payment standard from mid-April to mid-June, posing as voucher holders. Through this testing, we've uncovered a concerning trend of ongoing source of income discrimination against voucher holders. Our testing covered a wide range of housing types and housing providers of all sizes, and revealed 30 instances of explicit discriminatory practices. Many of these violations culminated in the outright denial of housing for voucher holders and were documented in recorded phone calls. As you already know, this type of discrimination is not only a violation of Virginia's fair housing law, but also illegal at the local level in Arlington County. It creates unnecessary barriers for individuals and families who rely on these vouchers to access safe, affordable, and reliable housing. And many of those affected are already navigating other barriers in this challenging rental market. I'm here today to bring this information to your attention. Some ways to help mitigate this include stronger oversight, accountability, and more education for housing providers and tenants alike, which could ensure that voucher holders have a fair shot at securing housing in our community. We welcome the opportunity to share our findings and to collaborate with the county on ways to address this issue moving forward. And I just want to thank you again for your time and continued leadership.
Thank you, Mr. Patel. The next speaker, please.
Next speaker is Mr. Joshua Handler, followed by Ms. Citali Mora.
Mr. Handler, good morning.
Good morning. I provided a slide. Is it being shown?
Yes, sir. Give me one moment.
Yeah, that looked like it for a second there. There you go. Thank you very much. Okay, good morning, everybody. Since public speakers are not allowed to respond at the time, I wish to address now your responses to my July public comment calling on the board to stop wasting our tax dollars on a failed policy and drop the EHO appeal. Please see the transcribed responses on the screen from July. I note no one refuted the point that EHO will not produce affordable new construction residential housing by the common understanding of the term due to the high value of land in Arlington. With that in mind, JD, thank you for your thoughtful comments. I too hope my child will be able to afford to live in a nice place like Arlington, but EHO will not provide that affordable housing for them or anyone. EHO will just provide new market rate housing similar to the types already being built here. Worse, it will encourage the tearing down of the relatively more affordable housing stock of older homes we have. If we just want more market rate housing in Arlington beyond what is approved in the various county plans, let us discuss the most appropriate locations, the cost to our infrastructure, schools, et cetera, and supposed benefits on the merits. But let us not claim it is solving an affordability problem. We are misleading the public to do so and leading to undue expectations that are bound to be disappointed. That said, there are several hundred homeless people in Arlington. They certainly have a housing crisis, and we should try to do what we can about that. The $1.4 million spent on the lawsuit so far could have helped in this matter, or in Culpeper Gardens and our seniors, as discussed in July by Matt, Susan, and Maureen. As for Takis, thank you for not commenting on the status of the lawsuit. However, my request was to drop the lawsuit since it is a waste of taxpayers' money to defend a policy that none of you seemingly disagree will not provide the affordable housing we may need in Arlington. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Handler. The next speaker, please.
All right. Next speaker is going to be Ms. Sidley Mora, followed by Wilson Bender.
Good morning, Ms. Mora.
It's Sitlali. My name is Sitlali. I'm here to speak regarding the $80,000 Amazon just received from this board. I'm part of Colectiva, and we've seen the realities longtime residents face when companies like Amazon take host of their communities and displace them from their homes. And I think we've all been hearing this during this board meeting today. And despite the promises giant corporations and frankly you all are making, families are being priced out. The grants and the investments that are given to developers are not making its way truly to creating affordable housing. And these promises of economic revitalization are not genuine. At the end of the day, it's companies with terrible track records and their CEOs that stand to benefit, not us. We also know Amazon's services are fueling the tech that ICE is using to terrorize and separate families and projects that power the continued surveillance and occupation of Palestine. So the ICE activity that you all have said you oppose, like what is a point in saying those words that have no action behind them? If you truly support immigrant residents and the brown and black people here, show it by supporting them with real initiatives that benefit them directly, not the dozens of corporations that are taking over the city and raising costs. We put out a report actually last year with research that just shows how bad gentrification has gotten. And what we found is reminiscent of, housing segregation, of people of color no longer being able to stay in their homes and being forced out. Thousands of brown families have faced no choice but to move. So who is this city really for? As you all have heard from lots of people today, our moral consciousness demands our electeds to have values that reflect the respect for the dignity and human rights over short-term gain. So I urge this board to divest from these corporations that are upholding apartheid and terrorizing our communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mora. The next speaker, please.
Next speaker is Wilson Bender, followed by Ms. J.M. O'Connell.
Mr. Bender, good morning.
Hello, how are you? First, I want to start off and state for the record, I unequivocally live within the borders of Arlington County.
Try to speak into the microphone because...
Hello?
Yes. You can also, yes, on the right side. On the right side. The right... Not there?
To the right.
Right
on the
below the... Yes.
Sorry, my back is... Hi. So first off, I want to state on the record unequivocally, I live within the borders of Arlington County. I do not live a 9-iron chip into Falls Church. I would not show up to whatever the equivalent of a county board meeting is in Alexandria and present myself as I am from Alexandria, nor would I do that in Fairfax at a school board meeting. Just want to state that. What I came here to speak today on is to say that local media has taken kick in the last few years is saying it lightly. This was the second to last issue of the printed newspaper, the Gazette Leader. This was an article not about some artwork that I did anonymously. This doesn't exist anymore unless the few copies that I have. When it went defunct, the archive went away. Kind of sucks. So we got a little group together and we started our own printed public access media. Anyone in Arlington can, contribute. We're going to start marketing in it. We're on our 4th issue. It's fully funded by me, so I don't take any money from anybody, so no one can tell me what to do. And also a big loss is Arlington Independent Media. The whole having a 3-camera studio, pan, tilt, zoom. I don't know, I was a big fan of Saturday Night Live growing up. And now it's just a whole bunch of electronics being auctioned off. Even if you were to all buy it all, to put it all back together, I don't know, I guess it's not how media is anymore. TV is now some guy talking on his phone in his car. Well, we actually are going to debut a public access media starting Monday. We only have 30 minutes of scheduled programming a day. It's a morning show. We formed a nonprofit to do that because, I don't know, the nerds need, that's not really my thing. I just do the creation of it all. But yeah, that starts Monday. It was APS back to school day, and this is what kindergartners came up with the definition of empathy is, just because that definition is in current events right now. Thanks.
Thank you. We can leave that slide on.
All right, next speaker is going to be Ms. J.M. O'Connell, followed by our last speaker, Sandra Motley.
Podium is almost as tall as ours.
Ms. O'Connell, good morning. You will have to, yes, exactly.
Wait.
A little bit. Awesome.
I know you live for every word. Good morning. I expect that many residents are not aware that about 20 years ago, Arlington adopted a separate additional tax on commercial properties. And my recollection is that corporate buy-in was secured by promising that the revenue could only be spent on infrastructure or transportation projects.
Okay.
But it's not clear to me if those are in Arlington or elsewhere in Virginia. So I am requesting that you revisit that tax, the authority for it, to ensure that the monies raised on our backs is spent in our county. And if it is not, that you pursue a way with the attorney and the manager of securing that that money is spent here. And November brings change in Richmond, but there's no guarantee either way it will particularly help Arlington. There's not going to be money. There's Medicaid issues, education issues. We're going to be squeezed, whether it's a friendly squeeze or a hostile squeeze. And we're all aware of who's across the river and how fond and how proximate it is for retaliation. Never leave a grudge behind. I don't think Arlington will be on DOT's favorite person list. So I think the property owners, Market Commons, the Wendy, whatever, they're paying this tax. I'm not asking you or suggesting here that it be raised or lowered. I simply am asking you to get from the manager how much was raised in 2024, how much was raised with this tax in the last 20 plus years. And then I'm asking you as the bottom line to look at this and other tools that have been adapted over the years, bring them forward, like the thing they did in Columbia Pike, where they sort of helped property owners by borrowing out from their taxes.
Thank you, Ms. O'Connell.
Raise money and spend it here.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. O'Connell. The next speaker, please.
Next speaker and last speaker is Sandra Motley.
Good morning, Ms. Motley.
Good morning. I am the founder of Percolate International. It is a tech company. We are the visionaries and designers of solar energy solutions for residential and commercial spaces, along with other software. I am a professional in the industry. My last employer was Georgia Tech, in which I worked in software development. My children, Douglas Jordan Grant, Olivia Monet Grant, and Harrison Frank Grant, are the victims of terrorism because of our entering the industry. It began with case 2008-CV
59814, Fulton County, Georgia, from the ages of 10, 13, and 16. Our homes and cars burglarized, food and beverages poisoned, threats that originated from a crime ring named Illuminati or Dawn of Technology, and we were branded as slaves. They plan to use your community, your students, to attack us and restrict our access, and then tease or maybe look for any opportunity to exploit our business and my children's lives by destroying their reputations, teasing breast surgery, for real. And as a result, my children are suffering from anxiety and depression after 15 years every day. We don't feel safe because of the terrorism, but we will not give in, and we are moving forward in our company. I wanted to let you know because we don't feel safe. When we go out into your communities, we're enjoying our lives like any other citizen.
Ms. Motley, your time is up. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Thank you.
Chair
Mr.
Karantonis.
Clerk, we have pending Mr. Griffin and I believe Mr. Martin.
Yes, if they are in person, because that is how they signed up, and there is nobody online by those names. So if Jacob Griffin has come in, or Brendan Martin. All right, Chair Karantonis, it doesn't look like anyone else has signed up for public comment.
Then this concludes the public comment section of this meeting. I will briefly address the items or issues that were raised by individual speakers. I want to remind that this is just a first take. My colleagues can make some remarks, but we have always there is always a post-processing here with the county board and addressing them in depth. So, Dr. Clement, you referred to your testimony last July, and here's my reaction to what you said today. So, yes, you misrepresented what exactly happened, and I'm afraid that you didn't care to look in detail at what actually had happened. First of all, you said that the sheriff's office released somebody. No, the sheriff's office didn't. The court did. Somebody was arrested, was presented before a court here in Arlington, and the court released that person. The sheriff's office, by the way, is not covered by Arlington's trust policy, so I'm afraid that you have several facts wrong, and it coincides that you have them wrong together with, I would say, extreme right news media that were propagating a story that is just not factually right, and that to me shows a kind of bias that I believe needs to be corrected at every point when it comes in the public discourse here in Arlington. Mr. Rubio, thank you for coming to remind us that the Americans for the Arts celebrate October every year as the annual Arts Month. We have a process here for proclamations. I really appreciate the fact that you came up. I mean, there is the current situation in our country is one of these that shows how much we could have avoided if we have invested in art and humanities to begin with. So I encourage you to be in contact with us so we can see how best we can support October as National Arts and Humanities Month. Mr. Marzol on Cresmont Apartments, thank you for taking the time to testify today. This is a complicated issue. Why? Because it involves a transfer development rights for an entity in a setting that is not covered right now by policy, and we have certain reservations with that. So it needs further scrutiny. So I invite you to engage with us, engage with staff. This is an ongoing discussion about whether the deal, quote unquote, that developer and proponents are are seeking here is viable and under what conditions. We are definitely supporting of affordable housing, creating more affordable housing. The legal construction of that is not always straightforward. I understand that, but it needs a little bit of work. Dr. Green, thank you for coming and testifying today. This board has been always very supportive of making sure that Arlingtonians of all walks of life and all types of economic background, racial background, national background, have options, housing options. We take your testimony. Thank you for having provided that in writing. I just remind everybody that the comp plan update, the update of the comprehensive plan, the public outreach phase of that just has started. We are in phase 1, and this is the best place to bring up the ideas and proposals. I fully agree that this update is happening after more than 40 or 50 years of not having done that. Our comprehensive plan has 12 elements. They need to click together in order to make this community work, and affordable housing is definitely one of the biggest ones. Mr. Acton, thank you for sharing your testimony here and the experience of your family. I would encourage you to further engage with us, and I would say that I would convey to you the same, like I just said for Dr. Green, to engage with the comprehensive plan comprehensive plan update study. Mr. Hassan, thank you for living in Arlington. Thank you for choosing Arlington to live. I understand that you have many choices. Everybody does. Arlington values remain where they are. Sometimes we may political have differences, but part of that, part of the set of Arlington values, maybe the framing of that is democracy and transparency. So I had the opportunity to engage with your group and others on an ongoing discussion about how we balance values, how we see our general social environment and social construction, how we deal with our companies and our economy. This has been always a live discussion in Arlington, and I believe that it will continue. Dr. Davis, first of all, congratulations again. I'm very sorry that you had to testify for the first time as a U.S. citizen on this topic. Met Park is, as every park and public space in Arlington, is supposed to be a very safe space, as safe as possible. In this particular case of Met Park, I cannot imagine a place that is better, surveilled right now and kept for many, many reasons. A very popular place. So we will follow up. I encourage you to follow up, and we will see what we can do to figure out the details of what happened that day. Ms. Bodine, thank you for bringing your concerns about the low residential study. Let me tell you one thing. Driveways are impervious. They're considered impervious. You may get a credit under stormwater because it is pervious. You did something good. You have pervious pavers, etc. But for purposes of what's vegetative, viable, they are impervious, and that's a standard. Thank you for the extensive documentation that you provided previous to your testimony. I think we will be engaging further in this and in detail. Mr. Lawson, thank you for bringing that up. The issue of what our zoning ordinance and what else can be done to provide or unlock value of church properties or church-held properties for the greater good and for the public good, and also to support the viability of these congregations is an ongoing discussion. I would be very happy to further engage in that. Mr. Patel, fair housing testing in Arlington. I believe that you're aware that in July we released our our report on our first round, or most recent round of fair housing testing. This report tested several parameters. For example, discrimination based on disability, on familiar status, on income, national origin and race, etc. The results of the testing, which I believe was quite robust, are give us pause. So they are mixed. Some are inconclusive, like, for example, discrimination for race or national origin. The results were inconclusive. This is not a good enough result for me. Familiar status was less so. Disability, looked a little bit better. The report proposes several things. First, to continue the effort of testing, to retest what we did. So I encourage you to reach out to us, and we can share more details on that. The Housing Commission and the Town Landlord Commission have invested a lot to make that happen, and we're happy that we could provide a report that really provides some real insights of how this very tight housing market looks for those who are most vulnerable and can less afford, and most exposed to discrimination. Mr. Handler, I will repeat, thank you for your testimony, repeated testimony on that. As a good lawyer yourself, you will understand that I'm not going to comment publicly on an ongoing lawsuit, especially when it is in a delicate phase during an appeal. Ms. Mora, thank you for coming here and testifying. Two things to highlight. It is indeed true that about $80,000 are now owed to Amazon because of the package of incentives that we had. I want to make clear two things. Number one, this is not money that the average Arlington taxpayer, a property taxpayer, pays. This is a percentage of the transit or of the hotel tax that would only accrue to Amazon if we had a higher revenue from transient occupancy taxes, so more visitors in Arlington that would come in and pay this tax because they stay in our hotels, and 15% of this delta, of this extra, would then accrue to Amazon as a recognition that the presence of this company here and other companies that came with it several years ago have revitalized our tourist sector and have created some extra revenue for our hotels and businesses, etc., and also a lot of jobs. Details are very important. As on the other side, I can have a very long conversation about what what the Amazon effect has been to date. I need to say a lot of people have talked about affordable housing. It's about $500 million that Amazon has co-invested here to keep thousands of Arlingtonians in houses and in housing that they otherwise wouldn't have been able to afford. And that's something we have to contemplate as well. Mr. Bender, thank you for coming here to testify. Two things to aim. It is a tragedy for Arlington that after 40 plus years of having an organization that supported independent media, that this organization folded financially. And we have lost both the organization and the place where a set of very dedicated volunteers have been producing over 4 decades and more. It's for me personally, this is a huge social and cultural loss for Arlington, and we need to be very introspective to see what we do about independent media in our community. You mentioned the auction of the remaining assets of this organization. Two things to that. In legal terms, these assets are not public assets, or they don't belong to us, they are Arlington County. They belong to the organization or the corporation that is effectively bankrupt at this moment. And the auction was not initiated by the Arlington County Board, but by the treasurer of Arlington County, who had to recover a significant amount of taxes. The law is what the law is in this case. We cannot do too much about that. Ms. O'Connell, on the 12% additional tax that businesses are paying here in Arlington into the transportation fund, I will refer you to the Mr. Manager, you can talk about that, but I always remember fondly the part of the revenue pages of our annual budget that speak directly to how these funds are accruing and how they are spent.
Yes, our county, our proposed and adopted budget, as well as our CIP, where a lot of these funds have been used, going back, I think it's probably to 2010 is when the legislation took effect. I may have the year, I might be off by a year or two. Is, as Ms. O'Connell said, by statute, has to be directed to, it's paid by commercial taxpayers. It has to go for infrastructure and transportation improvements. And we have dozens of pages of detail in there explaining where all that money goes. And happy to share that with her and have further conversations.
Thank you. And finally, Ms. Motley, I have to thank you for coming and testifying today. I'm trying to understand what kind of action you would request from us. Please reach out to the clerk so that we can figure that out. Thank you. Colleagues, any additional? I see Vice Chair DeFerranti.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I generally appreciate your thorough and on-point comments. I'll just say briefly, Mr. Marzol, I think you're back there. I will also be interested in the follow-up from your comments. Really appreciate them. Similarly, and circumstances of events tragically for you, Dr. Davis, and your family and friends. Follow-up there is something that I will also be interested in pursuing. Young children, any children's safety is perhaps our first and most important responsibility. And then last, Mr. Patel, I think your comments were very helpful. There has been advocacy, as I believe you know, with respect to potentially some steps that we could take to provide greater teeth to the local part of the ordinance. And so I'll be engaging on that work. Ms. Kellen Macbeth has done some leadership, and also the Human Rights Commission is the joint responsibility of me and Mr. Spain. So I'll be following up on that. Thank you.
Any other? I see Mr. Spain, then Ms. Cunningham.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Mr. Chair, for your comments and overview. And it's something being away for a month, and now we're back at it. But I do have a few things to state in response to what we've heard from our citizenry. And though you gave a very thorough overview, Mr. Chair, I just want to make a point of emphasis on some of these areas simply because this is the moment, in my opinion, where people really get to understand where a elected member stands, and not so much by way of an email or a press release, but I think it's important for all of them to hear us. So, Ms. Green, thank you and the entire coalition for coming up and talking about housing and our basic comp plan review that we're in right now. And as I look at this letter and see all of these organizations, one of which I somehow led many years ago, I don't know how I made it. Thank you for your thoughts and your concerns and your advocacy. And I guess I can say that for everyone here in the room. But more poignantly, I say that with emphasis to your group and many others is because that's where my alignment is, all right? Just in full transparency so people understand that when it comes to housing. And if I have not said it before, I'll say it again, housing is a human right. And as long as I'm in this position and where I'm at, I will be fighting hard to figure out ways to ensure that everyone, regardless of race, color, creed, religion, socioeconomic status, can find a place to live if they choose to here in Arlington. Mr. Hassan, you came up and talked about, you kind of teed up on what is the county doing and how are we engaged with some of the faith-based organizations. Let me be pointed for a second. When I came on the board in January, and thank you, Mr. County Manager and the county board, I kind of understood that there was a lacking in communication with houses of worship, faith-based organizations. We have about 90 in Arlington. And so with the assistance of the county board and our staff, what we did on May 8th, to be exact, we brought together a large group of faith-based leaders, interfaith leaders in Arlington at Lubber Run Park. It was the first of, I hope, many information sessions to move forward, to hear from them, to hear some of the concerns they have. You name the faith, they probably were there. And they were very open and excited that the county board had in fact carved out a space for them to engage. As I pulled up some of the ideas and some of the thoughts, well, some of the concerns that came up in that meeting. Concerns shared during that meeting was about rhetoric of hatred and anti-Semitism, anti-Muslim hate, bullying among children and teens, issues around safety and security, the fear of deportation among the immigrant community, and the challenges of creating affordable housing opportunities for Arlington residents, among others. We did an internal report, we have it. So I just want you to know that as much as I appreciate you coming up, we're on it. And we are monitoring that. We're continuing to have these dialogues. Are we perfect? No, but we have a lot of work, a long way to go with that. Mr. Lawson, this kind of, again, I'll just say this, you know, Westover Baptist Church and what's going on with not just Westover Baptist, but many churches and faith-based organizations across America. I grew up as a Methodist, and I went to a church that was full growing up in the day. Choose a church in Arlington on Sunday today, and it's probably not where it used to be 20 years ago. Let me tell you this, we need to do more work, working with our houses of worship, whether it's daycare center, whether it's affordable housing on some of those properties, because I think it'll benefit everyone. And I think there's initiatives out there going on right now in the Commonwealth and also across our nation about how we can do more, especially with some of these properties. Churches want to engage. And we've had some success stories here in Arlington already, but there's a lot more work to be done. The Human Rights Initiative, Mr. Patel, I did take a chance, I did look at it. The question is, what are we going to do about it? And those issues that came out, though the chair had articulated there's some issues there, yeah. But there's one thing we know for certain, at least I do. This issue we didn't just find out about this issue in the past year. Discrimination in housing and vouchers has been around for a long time in many ways. So the question becomes, what are we going to do? And I think we as a board are going to be talking about working with our housing commission, working with the liaison to our housing commission, Maureen Coffey and many others, on the next steps, right? And our human rights commission on the next steps to hold these folks who are accountable who are discriminating against people here in Arlington, because it's happening. It doesn't matter if it's happening to 20 or if it's happening to 1. It's happening and we know about it. So we got to get in front of that. Lastly, I want to talk about, you know, Dr. Davis, when you came up and you talked about what happened to you at Met Park, 2 of my colleagues already said we want to look at it. But when I ran for board last year, one of the issues was public safety. We were just down in that area yesterday, you know, opening up a school. And I would love to talk to y'all offline, because what happened to you should not have happened. When you call 911, someone should reply, should come back. Those are my thoughts. And the fact that you're here today as a new citizen and you had this experience is not in keeping with the values that we have here in Arlington. So I will reach out to you. I would like to speak with you and find out more about what happened, because that was unexcusable, okay? Lastly, Mr. Bender, love Mr. Bender. I have a lot to say about media. And much media here in our region and across the world in Arlington has become monopolized. and you're left with single sources of information, a lot of misinformation. We will figure out what that looks like. I'm happy that in his entrepreneurship, Mr. Bender is looking at ways to share information. And with that being said, Mr. Chair, that's all I'm gonna say. I'm sure we have two more colleagues that want to speak up and have some thoughts, but thank you for giving me an opportunity to share some words in this moment. And welcome back.
Thank you, Mrs. Spain. Mrs. Cunning.
Great. We'll try to keep this brief, given that we've had a lot of, almost as much public comment up here as public comment out there. But first of all, just a huge thank you to everyone for being here. This is always a really fun time, actually, the public comment section, because we see cross sections of our community. We sit here together, we're civil, we disagree sometimes, but we move ourselves forward. So I just, especially right now, want to thank you for that. I wanted to hit three topics. One is about general responsiveness, and I think Mr. Griffin was not able to be here with us, but he had raised some concerns about, when you reach out to the county, how quickly should you hear back? And I would like to just share with folks, we do have standards. We do not always meet those standards, but across the county, we do endeavor to make sure you get a response, like an acknowledgement in 2 days, and a response in 2 weeks. We are not hitting that, both in the board office and in the manager's office. And so I thank the manager and the board clerk for really doubling down this last year and a half to add capacity. We have a couple more system updates to do. But if you're getting stuck, report a problem on the website or call or email to the board, and we will get you unstuck as much as possible. Separately, on the public safety issue, I wanted to give the manager a moment to comment on, what our protocols are for responding to a 911 call and what follow-up should be happening.
Yeah, no, and I think I'm going to ask Stephanie to sit down with you and have a conversation. We would have to pull the 911 call logs and look into that. We take that very seriously, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can.
Yeah, and I think Ms. Bello can meet you in the hallway and have that conversation now and get that started. And then lastly on that topic, we will be doing our community survey next year in 2026. We do that every 4 years, and that is a time where we ask the community in a statistically valid way to share back with us, how's it going? What do you want us to do differently? And I think, especially given how crucial local government is to all of us right now, that's a really, really important set point to have the reflection of, are we getting it right? And where we're not getting it right, how do we improve? Secondly, on trees and the comp plan update. Those two are very connected because the comp plan update, first of all, Ms. Coffey and I are the board liaisons on that. What is underway right now is really a community conversation to think about how all the existing comp plan elements work together or fail to, and what we might need to adjust to make that happen. And I think the tree issue that Ms. Bodine raised is a particular element of that. We decided not to hold it until after the comp plan update because it's been so crucial that we begin to grapple with the climate impacts, the stormwater impacts, and the comfort impacts of the coverage of the lots and the tree plantability and preservation. Mr. Spain and I had a moment on the way to the meeting today to stop by where a large number of community members gathered in Cherrydale to try to preserve a 150-plus-year-old oak tree that is in imminent danger of development. That happens over and over again, and there's one thing we agree on as a community more broadly than this. I think it's sledding hills should never go away. But the second thing we all agree on is trees are really, really important to us, and we're not getting it all the way right now with our zoning requirements as well as our state laws that tie our hands on some things. So that is very important. And then lastly, I would just say, on the question of the churches having good use of their space, of the media having some support, and our arts integration, all of those things are what make us a community that is rich and deep, and know that we all, I think, up here take that seriously, that we need to preserve or advance some of those organizations. We will be on Tuesday awarding this year's Arts Awards, and that is a bigger number than it had been a couple years ago. We'd love to still keep growing that over time, and I will wrap there.
Thank you, Ms. Cunningham. Ms. Coffey.
Thank you. In an effort not to belabor a number of these points, because I think we are well covered, I want to speak a little bit to comp plan, housing affordability, the kind of broad topics that were brought up today, because I think that this is really critical. It's a big part of what brought me to the board, was feeling like we really do need a plan for our future that actually works and makes sense and is grounded in reality. And I think the comp plan update is such a huge and unique opportunity. I'm pretty sure that when the initial principles were adopted, none of us on this board were alive, and nor were even my parents alive at that point in time. So it's been a few generations, and I think it's about time to update those principles and really think about things like the environment, think about how we bring together the idea that we do need more housing and we need to be responsive to our community. And that also means having appropriate green space, having appropriate sewer stormwater systems, having appropriate schools and public safety involved. And doing that as a comprehensive plan update is really important, because it gives us that opportunity to bring all of those things together. There are a lot of challenges out there, right, with developing and growing, but challenges can be stop signs, or they can be opportunities to find creative solutions and figure out how we address those and then continue to move forward. And so I'm really, really grateful for those who are already engaging. We will have a manager's update on the comp plan review on Tuesday that will really call out the engagement opportunities and upcoming things for you to do to get involved in that process. So please stay on the lookout for that. Relatedly, the Cresmont development, it's really great to have a civic association coming and asking us to do more and move forward, and I really appreciate that. I think there are some issues with the plan that's being proposed, but I do wonder, you know, in a situation where we have a property owner, applicant, a neighborhood aligned on doing something here, whether there's alternative zoning opportunities that we could look into to find a way to get to yes here. I don't think the plan as proposed is a yes, but I do appreciate the enthusiasm, and I think if we're all committed to working together, there's probably something that we can get to here. The timeline may not be what everyone wants. On fair housing, this actually came up. I was at the Tenant Landlord Commission meeting this week, which I'm the liaison for Tenant Landlord and the Housing Commission, and I know the Human Rights Commission is looking at this as well. We did add additional funding in the budget this year for greater fair housing education, and we do also have an annual tenant summit where we really focus on educating people on their rights. I don't know that we've gone far enough, and I would love to be able to connect and figure out potentially how we can get you involved, and it seems like you and your organization have a ton of expertise that would be useful to us as we figure out kind of the next steps on really the local side of this. I think we all are conscious that perhaps some of the enforcement entities that have done this work on fair housing in the past may not be as interested in enforcing fair housing issues going forward. And I think we have also found through our own analysis, and it seems like your analysis backs it up, that source of funds is one of the most common forms of discrimination. And I don't believe that's prohibited at the federal fair housing level. It's state and Arlington. And so even if there are federal enforcement things happening, they're missing that bucket. And so I think that is something that's really important for us to connect on and figure out. I know I personally have reported Zillow listings before that even say in the description, like, no vouchers. And so I think there's an education of landlords element to make sure that they know that is illegal, but then there's also the enforcement element to make sure that when that happens, there's actually accountability from us. I was going to suggest, Dr. Davis, that you connect with Stephanie, our constituent services manager, director. And I'll leave it there because I think everything else has been covered in varying levels of depth today. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Coffey. And with that, colleagues, I assume that we are concluding our public comment section of this meeting, and we can now proceed, Mr. Deputy Clerk, to our regular business agenda, which always starts with a motion to approve the consent agenda. Which is, I will move that. I move that the county board adopt the county manager's recommendations for items on the consent agenda, and I will ask for a second.
And just for the record, there are no consent items that have been pulled.
Right. Otherwise, I would have assumed that you would tell us.
Yes,
So thank you, sir. We have a second with Vice Chair DeFerrand, and we will wait until okay, now I think we are in a place where we can continue. Colleagues, if I can have your attention, the motion on the table is to approve the consent agenda. It's moved by me and seconded by Vice Chair DeFerranti. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. It carries unanimously. So, the board just voted to approve the consent agenda, which includes minor site plan amendments, use permit requests, ordinance amendments, requests to advertise, and more. These are more than 40 items. These items were put on this consent agenda because they were thought to be non-controversial, but that does not mean that they are not important. So I will take a few minutes to highlight several of these items as brief as I can. Number one, if we can move the slide, item 12, this is a funding request for the Arlington Neighborhoods Program, for Arlington Neighborhoods Program projects. These are $4.8 million in Arlington Neighborhood Program bond funds. This is bonded money. Taxpayers have voted actually to fund these projects. I have to thank the Arlington Neighborhood Program Committee and our staff for carefully vetting and selecting these projects. So this is one is a sidewalk 5 feet wide. I dream of the day that we will be saying 6 feet wide on North Pollard Street in the Bellevue Forest neighborhood. The other is in North Harrison Street. There are curb extension accessibility upgrades. This is the Bluemont neighborhood. There are sidewalks and intersection improvements on 3 blocks around north of 25th and North Emerson Street. This is in the Yorktown neighborhood. And then finally in Arlington, the Arlington Mill neighborhood around 7th Road South, there are streetlight improvements. Most of us know 7th Road South as a place that's safe way to school. Campbell Elementary is there and has seen significant upgrades over time in street safety, pedestrian safety. Next slide is item 17. This is the fiscal year 26 Arlington Commission for the Arts grant recommendations. We heard my colleague, Ms. Cunningham, referring to a presentation that we'll have on Tuesday. These are $365,000 for direct financial support for arts organizations in our county. It includes 4 individuals and 12 organizations whose names will be displayed on screen here, but we will have also, they're available in the board review and board report, and we will have more of a conversation on Tuesday in depth. Item 18, that's the next one. This is the digital equity grants for fiscal year 26. This is $500,000 for 7 recommended digital equity grant recipients. They are listed on the screen. Most of you know these organizations well. This is part of approved carryover funds from a $2.8 million agreement with JBG for the use of our public dark fiber down in National Landing, where we have an innovation district. These grants are part of the county's digital equity initiative, which seeks to empower everyone with the tools and knowledge they need to fully participate in a world that is definitely very tech-driven and where digital equity really matters as an essential part of life. We expect this money to allow more than 1,600 residents to connect to county services, to participate in digital citizenship, to access education and employment opportunities, and everything that's available in the digital world today. The next slide is item 20. We just authorized the county manager to accept and appropriate $50,000 in state funding to support restoration projects and upgrades in the truly historic Hume School. Here in the picture, this is a building that was built in 1891. It was an elementary school, and it's today the home of the Arlington Historical Society. I have to mention that Delegate Hope was really instrumental to get us this earmark, and thank you for that. Next slide is item 26. This is the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. Grant funding. We just authorized the county manager to accept and appropriate $150,000 in Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act funding, and that goes to the Department of Human Services. This will be a 12-month grant allowing the Department of Human Services to provide coaching services to at least 100 residents that have been laid off by federal government and all federal contractor employers, talking about something that affects right now thousands of Arlingtonians. So I look forward to what this money can accomplish and whether we can support these households in one of the most difficult parts of their life right now. Next slide is item 30, Kinship Navigator Funds. We approved acceptance and appropriation of more than $135,000 in state funding for hiring of a kinship navigator in the county's Child and Family Services Division. This position will support child welfare services. The Kinship Navigator program is part of that. And it includes program advertising, information, assistance, referral, and a lot of needs assessments and other management services that will help families in need and children that are referred to the Child Welfare Services Program. Next is item 31, which is the Virginia Homeless Solutions Program grant funding. We just accepted and appropriated $115,000 in state funding again to support homeless prevention services provided by the Community Assistance Bureau. That's not the entirety of the grant. There is also a smaller part of the grant that goes to the year-round continuum of care activities, which is a body where representative stakeholders in this in our community work towards ending homelessness. Next slide is item 32. These are food security mini grants. These are $150,000 once again, and I'm very proud and thankful for accomplishing that. That are mini grants towards 13 recommended recipients. They are listed here. This is part of our Arlington Food Security Strategic Plan. And this year's project target particularly, as every year, particularly vulnerable population, older adults, children, families, immigrants, historically marginalized populations, and those who are returning from incarceration. The next one is item 34. These are $20,000 for the provision of Suboxone to the Arlington County Fire Department. These are proceeds from the opioid lawsuit settlement, and this will go to our fire department, our first responders, who will be using Suboxone. Suboxone is a prescription medication which is used to treat opioid dependence, and is particularly suitable to treat drug abuse patients in the time that is between when we have an incident that we have to intervene and the moment that they begin to receive substance abuse treatment, regular substance abuse treatment, or private treatment when they enroll in the program. So this is particularly important because it keeps these patients healthy and allows us the time to get them to the right program. As always, we always disclose here the deeds of easement that we agreed to. We approved 2 deeds of easement this month for projects of public interest. This is item 35 and 36. Item 35 is on South Walter Reed around 6th Street South. This is a small easement for public sidewalk, traffic signal, and utilities. That's very close to the new Grace Hopper Center, the Career Center. And item 36 is on continuous work on Carlin Springs Road, pedestrian improvements. These are permanent and temporary easements that allow the construction and maintenance of a new sidewalk, curb, gutter improvements. That's between 2nd Street South and 6th Road South. Finally, item 40, this is a request to advertise on stormwater utility credits. The board just approved a request to authorize the advertisement of a future public hearing on a stormwater utility credit program. This exists for single-family homes, but it was not available to homeowners associations. Thereby, this, if approved, this will extend the credit eligibility, and it will be heard at a public hearing by the board on October 18th, 2025. The policy change, if adopted, would align with the original intent of the voluntary credit program to recognize and encourage proactive stormwater management. There are 181 homeowners associations in Arlington. They encompass almost 3,800, a little bit more than 3,800 residential properties. 165 HOAs represent around, and these are, they have significant grounds, and they until now they couldn't easily qualify for these credits. And if the policy change and a tweak is approved, they will be able to do that. This is a request to advertise, so the full hearing on that will be next month. And that concludes my presentation on the consent agenda items. Colleagues, if there are any comments on the consent agenda, I am asking you. I see none, which means that we can proceed, Mr. Deputy Clerk, to our regular agenda. And I will ask you to call the first item.
Yes, sir. Item 43, site plan amendment, SP number 220 at 2500 Wilson Boulevard. It's the general land use plan amendment to change the land use designation for the block bounded by Wilson Boulevard, North Barton Street, Clarendon Boulevard, and North Cleveland Street. It's also a mixed use, rezoning from C01.5 mixed use district to C02.5 mixed use district, and also a site plan 24-00034 site plan amendment SP number 220 to permit the construction of a 14-story mixed-use building with approximately 343,719 square feet of residential gross floor area and 14,032 of retail GFA.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Mr. Manager, I see that our fantastic staff has gathered already. The floor is yours.
We have the team assembled. Emma Martin is going to lead off with the presentation. She's assisted by Bryce Johnson and Michael Luski, and Anthony Fusarelli is available for questions that none of them can answer.
Hello, I'm Emma Martin with the Department of Community Planning, Housing and Development, and I'll be presenting the 2500 Wilson items. Like Mr. Manager mentioned, my colleagues Bryce Johnson from DES and Mike Kaluski from Real Estate are here with me today. Let me make this full screen. This project consists of a GLUP amendment, rezoning, and major site plan amendment to redevelop the site, as well as an encroachment ordinance. The 1.42 acre site is located at 2500 Wilson Boulevard in the Clarendon Courthouse neighborhood. It consists of 10 parcels. The site is currently occupied by a 5-story office building with ground floor retail and retail equivalent uses. The site is bordered by Wilson Boulevard to the north, North Barton Street to the east, Clarendon Boulevard to the south, and North Cleveland Street to the west. The site is located 0.25 miles from the courthouse metro station and 0.4 miles from the Clarendon metro station. The existing office building is set back approximately 108 feet from the sidewalk on Clarendon Boulevard. Within this setback area is elevated public space, a paver walkway, and a surface parking lot that also serves as the entrance and exit for the underground parking garage. The public art installation Invisible Forces by artist Jim Sanborn was installed in 1987 in the public space area at the southwest corner of the site. Site Plan 220, allowing for a 5-story office building, was originally approved in 1984, along with a Glup Amendment and rezoning. In 1985, there was a major amendment that reconfigured the building, increased the height, decreased the parking, and increased the total GFA. The building was constructed in 1986, and the site plan has been amended several times over the years. The subject site is currently designated low office apartment hotel. The applicant is requesting a Glup amendment to change the site to medium office apartment hotel. Per the applicable Glup study guidance for the site, medium office apartment hotel is an appropriate Glup designation. The existing zoning is CO 1.5. The applicant is requesting a rezoning to the CO 2.5 district, which is consistent with the proposed Glup designation. In June 2022, TMG Wilson 2500 Boulevard LLC applied for a Glup amendment with an associated rezoning. As the site in question has little specific guidance in the courthouse sector plan, staff initiated a special Glup study which evaluates the appropriateness of the requested Glup amendment and provides additional guidance for potential future redevelopment. For this Glup study, an interdepartmental staff team initiated a public review process in conjunction with the LRPC, which consisted of representatives from the Clarendon Courthouse Civic Association, Lyon Village Civic Association, as well as the Park and Recreation Commission. Community input gathered throughout the public review process, which included one LRPC meeting, informed the 2500 Wilson Special Glup Study document. The study document summarizes staff's analysis and recommendations for potential future redevelopment. The consensus was that given the guidance for this site outlined in the recently completed Courthouse West Special Glup Study document, there was no need to conduct a Tier 2 review, and that the Courthouse West study can inform further analysis of the 2500 Wilson block. In May 2023, the 2500 Wilson Special Glup Study document was presented to the County Board, along with the adoption of an RTA for future public hearings to consider the Glup amendment from low to medium office apartment hotel. The 2500 Wilson Special Glup Study staff report recommended that this project advance to the site plan review phase in the near term, using the guiding principles in the Courthouse West Special Glup Study. The 2500 Wilson Special Glup Study document outlines recommendations for building height, including guidance on setbacks, height, and tapering. At its September 17, 2022 meeting, the County Board adopted this study document, including an amendment to its guidance on maximum building heights. In presenting this study document, the staff recommendation was a maximum of 12 stories, whereas the Planning Commission's recommendation to the board suggested that any future site plan review for the proposed project in the Courthouse West site may consider up to 16 stories for a residential mixed-use building. Ultimately, in its final action to adopt the study document, the County Board included specific direction to staff to revise the plan's maximum building height from 12 to 14 stories with no further amendments. As such, these adopted building height recommendations shown here for the Courthouse West site were extended to the subject site at 2500 Wilson Boulevard as a basis for evaluating the proposal. While there's little specific guidance in the courthouse sector plan for this site, the courthouse sector plan addendum calls for higher density commercial mixed-use residential for this area, but does not specify a particular zoning or Glup designation. The courthouse sector area urban design analysis, shown on the left, examines the built environment at the time while focusing on areas that need improvement, as well as the positive elements within the area that provide the basis for which future improvements could be built upon. The courthouse sector plan urban design analysis identifies the existing open space and a sculpture or other feature on the subject site. The courthouse metro station area concept plan, shown on the right, was developed as a part of the sector plan to serve as the urban design framework for the courthouse area. The concept plan identifies open space, plaza, enhanced landscaping on the south portion of the site, and the applicant's proposed public space is in conformance with the location of the open space shown on the concept plan. The applicant is proposing a 14-story mixed-use building with 316 residential units, including 20 committed affordable units, approximately 14,032 square feet of ground floor retail, and 6,505 square feet of public space. The applicant is proposing LEED Gold certification and zoning ordinance modifications for additional density, residential and retail parking, compact parking ratio, density exclusions, and setbacks. This shows the layout of the site with the main lobby on North Barton Street and other lobby entrances on North Barton and Wilson. There are 6 residential unit entrances on Wilson Boulevard. Garage access and loading is on North Cleveland Street with a public space along Clarendon Boulevard, with multiple retail entrances and a bus stop at the corner of Clarendon and North Barton Street. Now we'll get into analysis. So overall, staff finds the proposal is in conformance with the GLUP study guiding principles. The project adheres to a maximum height of 14 stories and incorporates stepbacks on North Barton Street, Clarendon, Wilson Boulevards to ensure appropriate transitions within the surrounding context. It implements streetscape improvements, loading off of North Cleveland Street, new bike lanes, and an upgraded bus stop with a curb extension and below-grade parking to foster a pedestrian-friendly environment per the GLUP study's guidance. It also provides new trees, landscaping, green roofing, and a second-floor landscaped amenity terrace with 27% tree canopy coverage site-wide and 76% tree canopy in the public space. In terms of policy conformance, it commits to the creation of 20 committed affordable units, meets the GLUP study's guidance in terms of building height, uses fenestration, articulation, and stepbacks to distinguish between building top, middle, and base. It also provides the recommended amount of public space with public art and a mix of green space and hardscape with native trees. In summary, the site plan is consistent with the GLUP study and advances several key county goals, including providing CAFs at 60% AMI with 9 one-bedrooms and 11 two-bedrooms. The project provides streetscape improvements on Wilson, North Cleveland Street, Clarendon Boulevard, and North Barton Street, as well as traffic signal improvements and a 5-foot wide bike lane on both sides of North Barton Street and a protected bike lane on the northbound lane. The project is participating in the Green Building Incentive Program and is committed to LEED Gold certification and will meet minimum energy optimization performance, including Energy Star appliances and WaterSense fixtures and bird-friendly glass, as well as a portion of parking spaces with EV charging. Lastly, the applicant's meeting the GLUP study's recommended amount and location of public space along Clarendon Boulevard, and the applicant has committed to provide on-site public art as recommended by the sector plan. The base density for the site is 150 units. The applicant is seeking 148 units and additional density from the zoning ordinance section 15.5.9 and with the GLUP amendment, as well as 18 units in green building additional density for a total of 316 units. The public review process for this site plan application included review by the SPRC. The SPRC consisted of representatives from various commissions, including civic associations, including the Clarendon Courthouse and Lionville and Citizens Association. At the beginning of the SPRC process, staff held an online engagement opportunity which garnered 153 participants and 593 comments. From this, a summary of responses was created and posted to the project webpage. There were 2 SPRC meetings, one in March and one in April 2025. This was followed by a second online engagement opportunity in May 2025 that was focused on the public space and garnered 260 participants. Lastly, staff conducted our standard outreach to community and relevant groups and promotion methods through various county channels. In addition to keeping an updated project webpage, staff followed the typical outreach procedures for rezoning, GLUP amendments, and site plans, including informing civic association and condo associations about the proposal. We sent letters to the adjacent property owners and notified Joint Base Meyer-Henderson Hall. There was an initial online engagement opportunity in January that ended in February, followed by the 2 SPRC meetings, and a second online engagement that specifically focused on the public space in May, like I mentioned. The Transportation Commission reviewed this request at its August 28th meeting and recommended unanimous approval in a vote of 10-0. The Planning Commission recommended unanimous approval on September 3rd in a 7-0 vote, and the Housing Commission recommended unanimous approval on September 4th in a 9-0 vote. The site plan review committee roster included various commissions and committees listed on the screen, and the Clarendon Courthouse Civic Association and Lion Village, as well as the Charleston Condos. Clarendon Courthouse and Lion Village did participate in both SPRC meetings, and we received correspondence from both organizations. The Charleston Condo Association did not respond. Some topics discussed at the SPRC meeting included building height, design, and public space. Staff finds the project is generally consistent with the applicable and relevant adopted or accepted county board plans and policies, as well as with the uses permitted and use regulations of the district as set forth in the zoning ordinance. Therefore, staff recommends adoption of the GLUP amendment, rezoning, and site plan amendment. Now we'll proceed to the encroachment ordinance. The applicant is requesting a 1,414 square foot encroachment for a proposed underground electric transformer vault. The proposed vault encroaches into the existing easement for public street and utilities purposes. The proposed vault is entirely behind the back of the curb under the proposed sidewalk along a portion of the North Barton Street frontage. Staff recommends the adoption of the ordinance to permit this encroachment, and this concludes my presentation, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Martin. I believe that we will hear now from our applicant.
Great. Thanks, Mr. Chair. My name is Kedrick Whitmore. I'm a land use and zoning attorney with Venable LLP. I want to thank Ms. Martin for her presentation and see if she would not mind sharing ours, given some lag issues that we have when we present sometimes. We're excited to bring you this application here for 2500 Wilson Boulevard, and I'm going to first turn it over to Dan Glavin with the applicant to introduce the project. Thank you.
Thank you, Ked. My name is Dan Glavin, and I'm a member of the development team at TMG, otherwise known as the Meridian Group. I'm excited to be here today to discuss the proposed redevelopment of 2500 Wilson Boulevard and want to quickly acknowledge the effort that has gone into this application. Between staff reviews, formal community engagements, and many informal touch points along the way, it has been a truly collaborative effort, and I genuinely believe that the project is better because of it. Moving on to the next slide, quick background on the site itself. As staff mentioned, the project is located in the courthouse neighborhood within the RB corridor, what we consider to be the heart of the RB corridor along with Clarendon. Although this market has faced headwinds from an office standpoint, we believe this is a premier location for a residential development that will complement recent developments that have either been built or approved. The site has great access to public transit. It's a 5-minute walk to the courthouse metro, approximately a 9-minute walk to the Clarendon metro, and has an on-site bus stop as well. It boasts a walk score of 98, which means most daily errands do not require a car. And this fact is worth underscoring because our proposal, in essence, is putting residential density where density makes sense. Looking at the site more closely on the next slide, the existing office building was built in the 1980s. It's about 104,000 square feet, including ground floor retail, and is 5 stories in height. You'll notice that none of the surrounding properties have been redeveloped recently. And so in a way, this project will be the first of a few projects that will help bridge the gap between Clarendon and Courthouse. Additionally, as seen on the next slide, the existing property includes open space along Clarendon Boulevard, specifically in the bottom right-hand image. And the open space that is there today sits on top of a partially below-grade garage, and the conditions are suboptimal. If you walk by, it's elevated from the sidewalk. It feels private and overall uninviting. So a key component of our application is replacing and enhancing that open space so it can be better activated and utilized by the community. There is also public art on site that we're excited to reincorporate and improve as part of the new development. From a programming standpoint, we are proposing a 14-story structure with 316 residential apartments, 14,000 square feet of ground floor retail, and 2 levels of below-grade parking. We're proud that we've created 3 great activated sides of the building. The residential entry is located off of North Barton Street, ground floor retail concentrated along Clarendon Boulevard, and residential amenities as well as units with direct access to the street are located on Wilson Boulevard. So last, North Cleveland Street is kind of the utilitarian side of the building where we've concentrated parking and loading entrances, which is a significant improvement compared to the existing conditions today. Next, a little bit of background on the building design itself. At the beginning of the process, we tried to answer the question, what would it look like to maximize the allowable density on the site? This obviously left much to be desired, and more importantly, did not provide meaningful open space on site. So once we carved the building to accommodate that open space, we made a purposeful decision to rotate the massing so it formally responds to the context of the surrounding neighborhood. We think it makes sense to concentrate density in the center of the site, and a byproduct of that approach is that it reduces any shadow impacts to the single-family homes to the north. And finally, we introduced tapering and setbacks, as well as stepbacks, to provide a distinct base, middle, and top portion of the building. And this makes the building feel more approachable from a pedestrian perspective and ultimately aligns with the club study guidance. Acknowledging the time that I've spent so far, I'd like to touch on the renderings quickly before handing it back over to Ked. So starting in the northeast corner of the building, this is from the perspective of Barton and Wilson. This view emphasizes how the building opens up to the pedestrian as well as the vehicular approach along Wilson Boulevard. And also in terms of facade materials, we've proposed a light-colored brick with various articulations, dark-colored panel, some pops of medium-colored panel, as well as glazing. Next, this is the perspective from the southwest corner of the building, Cleveland and Clarendon specifically, which hints at the improved open space, but we'll see a better view of that shortly. On the next slide is going to be the perspective from the southeast corner, so you're approaching on North Barton Street with Clarendon Boulevard in the forefront. And then last, we have an illustrated plan view, which really covers everything that we've discussed so far. So with the next perspective, this is going to be the better perspective of the publicly accessible open space. You can see it's flush with the sidewalk, which is that significant improvement compared to the existing conditions today. And I want to highlight that the public space and retail adjacency here is very purposeful. We want to activate the space and maximize the potential for retail to thrive here, which we think can be accomplished by drafting off the energy closer to Clarendon. And so last but not least, we have another view of the open space from the corner of North Barton Street. And just want to highlight that we plan to incorporate high quality materials, native plantings, and various seating areas. So it's not just a place that you pass by, but it's really one where you can stop and relax. So thank you again for the opportunity to present our redevelopment plans, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Dan. Excuse me, on the next slide here, you saw this image earlier, but we're bringing it back to show you the ground floor operations in the context of transportation. You can see that with the retail, residential, parking, and loading entrances, we have activity on all four sides of the building. As Dan mentioned, the parking and loading access is on that west side of the building from Cleveland Street. On the next slide, a little bit about the parking. We're proposing a parking ratio of 0.42, which we think is the right number here, given the program and the location of the property. We're very happy to note that we actually have more bike parking spaces than car parking spaces, which I don't think you see very often, but we're really glad to bring that forward as well. On the next slide here, you'll see that we are doing a large number of transportation improvements at the site. Again, due in large part to the fact that there are public rights of way on each side of the building. I will not belabor these or go into them at this point, but we can certainly talk about any of them in depth if desired. I should point out that on the northeast and southeast sides of the building, there are also off-site transportation improvements that the county requested that we undertake as part of our community benefits package that will help enhance the transportation network in this important area of the RB corridor. So on the next slide is a little more detail about those off-site improvements. Again, I will not belabor those or try to read a civil diagram, but if there's any desire to talk about them further, we can do that. On the next slide here is some information about our community benefits package. And this is something that we're really proud of, what we've been able to bring forth here with the additional density and the GLUB change. So the first, and Dan mentioned it, but I think it's worth highlighting again, is the 6,500 square foot open space there along Clarendon Boulevard that is going to spill into that retail space. As he noted, we will be replacing that existing public art on site. Throughout the process, and I guess separate from the process, we've had several conversations with the artist, Jim Sanborn. When we spoke with AED initially, there was some desire to keep a Jim Sanborn piece in the county, and this is the only one. So we've had a few conversations with him to date about how that could be achieved here in the new open space environment. I mentioned those transportation improvements off-site. Those are about $1.5 million in total value. As was mentioned, we are participating in the GBIP, the Green Building Incentive Program, and reaching a gold level of certification. And then finally, I think what we're most excited about is our proposal related to the on-site affordable housing. We're proposing 20 committed affordable units. And of those units, there will be 11 two-bedrooms, which we're really excited to have over 50% of our commitment being in the family size unit realm. So with that, we'll close and be available for any questions you may have. Thank you. And thanks, Ms. Barton, for driving. Here.
Thank you for the extensive presentation. Both, I believe that we have now input from our advisory groups. I see here the Planning Commission, the Housing Commission. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Of course. Happy to be here. So I have the pleasure of representing the Planning Commission here before you all this morning. I also had the pleasure of actually chairing the SPRC for this particular item. So I kind of got a double whammy on that one. So I feel very up to speed on the project for a multitude of reasons, but really wanted to echo the comments of Ms. Martin, that those remarks really did illustrate the experience we had with the SPRC. The applicant was very responsive to community feedback on a variety of topics. Street activation and sort of the pedestrian experience was one item that we spent a fair amount of time on. And I think with the units that we're going to open onto the street on Whistling Boulevard, that will help with that, as well as sort of the scaling of the building to sort of make it more inviting and more successful for retail. That was a big topic. We certainly spoke about, from the transportation aspect. The parking ratio makes a lot of sense. We've already heard about sort of the location of the building is extremely walkable, really to highlight and emphasize that nature of the location. We did talk about whether there could be a bus shelter added as part of the improvement, and really there are sort of restrictions with the site and sort of the tree planting that I believe will not make that feasible in part. So that was something we did cover at the Planning Commission hearing. In terms of sort of other items, we talked about the public art. Obviously, there is art currently on the site that will be moved or relocated or some other sort of element. I think there's a nice opportunity here to apparently work with the existing artist of that, and that might be a nice way to sort of, I think my understanding is this individual would be excited to have the opportunity to sort of re-envision art that he had previously made potentially. So that's an interesting element we don't always get when it comes to replacing or sort of looking at what the public art contribution will be for a project. We did, as a Planning Commission body, have some discussion on whether there would be an opportunity to look at sort of the historic, culturally relevant kind of history of that community. I know that there's a large Vietnamese history to that community, and maybe that could be factored into the public art as well. There was sort of a motion to that effect. It was broadly construed and did not ultimately pass, but it prompted a good discussion in terms of maybe there could be some overture in that area as well. I'm happy to answer any questions, but really looking forward to this project, and it was non-controversial, and we were unanimous in supporting it.
Thank you, Ms. Steinberger. Let me guess that it was non-controversial at the end because of the enormous work that you and others have invested over how many years? 23 at the very least, I would say.
Have I been on Planning Commission?
No, the SPRC was recent, like 1.5 years at the very moment.
How old do you think I am? No, it was a very successful SPRC process. I think we had good community engagement, and there was some, just good engagement across the board.
Also very visible in how the project was sculpted to the current proposed form. The next advisory commission, Mr. Deputy Clerk, is Housing Commission, I see.
Commissioner Schwartz is actually joining us virtually, so.
Okay, Mr. Schwartz.
Good morning. Good morning. Can you hear me?
We can.
Yes.
Okay. Hi, my name is Jason Schwartz. I'm representing the Housing Commission. We discussed this development, and we discussed the Committed Affordable Housing Program, base density, bonus density, and bonus density components. We found all the housing contributions in line with current county policy. As typically seen, the base density AF contribution is a lower value than the equivalent choice for on-site units. We did note that there are no 3-bedroom CAFs, but also noted that the trade-off in CAF size and total number of CAFs produced. We have noted that this is a very high value and prime location, and the commission was in agreement that the building would be at least 16 stories ideally to take advantage of the CO 2.5 zoning to capture the most committed affordable housing benefits. The Housing Commission was in consensus that all buildings in this corridor, RB corridor, should retain the maximum height allowable in the zoning district. We also noted the desire to retain childcare on site. And then in summary, we voted unanimously to recommend the county board approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schwartz. Are there any other advisory commissions? We received several letters from the Transportation Commission, etc. So there are none here
There are none
to testify
here.
today.
Absolutely.
Then I guess, Mr. Deputy Clerk, we can move on to public testimony. I see already public speakers here. Let's call the first two.
Absolutely. We've got Adam Theo, who is in person, who's speaking for 2 minutes. And followed by our virtual attendee, Mr. Bernie Byrne.
Good morning, Mr. Theo.
I'm glad that the 2500 Clarendon Boulevard is going along smoothly and had such a successful site plan process. I just want to chime in and give some 2 cents that I think this is a great opportunity to help link Clarendon with Courthouse, two neighborhoods which have sort of stood alone for too long. And anything that we can do as a community, as a county, to sort of knit and bring together more of the Roslyn-Ballston corridor together is greatly needed. So I love to see this project. More housing is always a good thing, and I welcome all my new neighbors living just a few blocks away. So thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Theo. The next speaker, please.
All right, next speaker virtually is going to be Bernie Byrne, followed by Ms. June O'Connell.
Dr. Byrne, good morning.
Yes, hello. Hello, can you hear me?
We do. We can hear you.
Thank you. The proposed building has little biophilia and sustainability. It has a very small green roof, only part of the roof. No solar panels and no green walls. Flowering native vines should hang from the roof, balconies and ledges, and climb from the ground on trellises. There are none of these. As I stated during an SPRC meeting, the public space will have too much pavement and too little green space. The Clarendon Courthouse area presently has much pavement and many paved plazas. It really doesn't need any more. Make the public space green. I mean, this developer likes pavement. The August 7th, 2025 revised conceptual landscape plan does not identify the species of any shrubs, ground covers, or perennials. Earlier, in a May 7th letter to the county zoning administrator, Mr. Whitmore, who is here today, refused a request to submit a draft plant palette. This prevented the public and your board from making any comments or suggestions about the palette. You may wish to ask Mr. Whitmore about this. Monarch butterfly caterpillars eat only milkweeds. To implement your 2016 Monarch pledge, please ask the applicant to install common milkweed in the public space and elsewhere in the project area. This will help restore the declining monarch butterfly populations. To help pollinators, ensure that wind-pollinated grasses and sedges comprise less than 25% of all small plantings. The landscape plan shows that one of the species will be American elm. However, Native American elm is highly susceptible to Dutch elm disease, DED. It won't survive very long unless the applicant changes this. The applicant should replace the tree with another species or the DED-resistant American elm cultivar, such as New Harmony or Princeton. The applicant should place low fencing around all tree trenches and plantings, or elevate them to protect them from trampling and dogs. The plantings will not survive for long if the applicant fails to do this.
Your time is up. Thank you. Thank you
Chair,
for the
he has
testimony.
one more minute. I apologize. He's actually one more minute.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry about
I
that.
apologize, Dr. Byrne.
Okay, actually, I'm just about done. The plants will not, I'll repeat the last paragraph. The applicant should place low fencing around all tree trenches and plantings, or elevate them to protect them from trampling and dogs. The plants will not survive for long if the applicant fails to do this. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Byrne, and again, apologies for intervening at the wrong moment.
The next speaker is going to be Ms. June O'Connell, followed by Jane Green. Both will be speaking for 3 minutes.
Good morning, Ms. O'Connell, for a second time.
Thank you. I get 3 minutes?
Yes, ma'am.
It says 2.
It says two there.
Just apologize. There we go.
Okay.
All these people can speak really fast, and I don't seem to be able to do it. So, as you know, I oppose this, the manager's recommendations, and I challenge the conclusion that item 43 will not have adverse impacts. I have documented or made every effort to document the dialogue that went on and the decisions that were adopted for the GLUP study in September, both in the July RTA and in the September discussion. The board was clear that the building was to be 12 stories, but that an applicant could go up to 14 in the center with special stuff. And you were vague about whether it was going to be community benefits or design, but the threshold was 12, and it had to earn 14. This applicant has owned this building, paid $32 million for it in 2018. It followed that GLUP study. It's just clear. And in the interim between when you made a decision, they filed for 16 stories, knowing that this was going on. So they've always calculated 16 stories. So the basic premise I have for you is, if it can ignore your decisions, your discussions, then you can ignore what they come before you. And I've offered you 3 options. The first one is reject this and send them back for a 12-story building with designs and benefits for the 14. I recognize you're not going to do that, you're salivating. I gave you a second offer, which was to send it back for 3 months so they could craft a building that was consistent with the discussion that was adopted by the board in September. So I figured that's a non-starter because you're salivating. So the third option is to get the benefits now. And I suggested that you suggested the applicant that before you accept this and approve it, then you suggest that they go back and do their little numbers and come up with 2 3-bedroom units, and they drop the thresholds from 60 to 40. That's doable. It's a work of conditions. They were supposed to do special stuff. Second, that you ask them to up the lead score to premium. I think that this is well within what the board discussed and what was adopted. I mean, they adopted it. You didn't just, it wasn't some dicta. It was part of the discussion for Mr. DeFerrante and for Mr. Cartionis to make the decision unanimous. They expected special stuff. And this applicant has submitted that it went from 16 to 14. How nice of it. I'm sorry. We deserve something more, and I'm looking for you to give it in both a better lead score and more affordability in these units. So thank you very much. I appreciate your attention.
Thank you, Ms. O'Connell. The next
speaker is Jane Green, followed by Ms. Dima Hakura.
Hello, my name is Jane Green. I'm here representing the YIMBYs of Northern Virginia. And just on a personal note, I am a member of the Clarendon Courthouse Civic Association as of January. Very excited. I'm here to speak in support of this building. I think that this is, as the applicant and the staff have said, a fantastic location to put more housing. And I wish it was 16 stories. I think this is an opportunity for even more housing. But here we are. I know that it's very important to remember the urgency of these situations. We're in a very difficult financial climate. We've seen multiple buildings that have been approved that would be the opportunity to bring hundreds of units that are being stalled or canceled because of the cost of construction at different height levels. So I think it's really important that when we have the opportunity to bring more housing to such a connected part of Arlington that has metro access, that has bus access, that has a greatly improved bike network, we should really take advantage of that. I've walked along this section between Courthouse and Clarendon. This building, had served a purpose, but it's kind of a dead zone now. I have never considered that green space in front of it in any way an open space. So I think the opportunity to bring this building really into the community is really wonderful. I'll mention, I do hope that they can retain the daycare space because as much as I love housing, I also love daycare. So I think this is a great opportunity. The housing itself is a community benefit. We have to take advantage of every opportunity to get more housing. So I urge your support without delay. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Green. The next speaker, please.
All right, next speaker is Ms. Dimika Hakura for 5 minutes.
Dima Hakura.
Dima Hakura.
Yeah.
Good
morning. My name is Dima Hakura, representing the Clarendon Courthouse Civic Association, where the 2500 Wilson Boulevard sits. Overall, the CCA likes the design and are happy that the developer followed the recommendation of maintaining a public space with hopefully a lot of tall trees along Clarendon Boulevard. Having it on the street level will be more usable and an improvement. Members were also happy with the bike accommodations on this property. What we would have liked to see is adhering to the special GLUB study with regards to setbacks and tapering on the Cleveland side of the building, and a LEED Platinum certified building. We also urged for the removal of the residential units, the lofts on the ground floor of Wilson Boulevard side of the building, which both Lion Village Civic Association and the CCCA were against. We want to see Wilson Boulevard activated by either retail or square footage for public service. Wilson Boulevard and Clarendon Boulevard are the main traffic arteries between busy courthouse and vibrant Clarendon, going in opposite directions with one row of buildings in between acting as the median. This building being one of them. There is a significant pedestrian traffic traversing back and forth between these two hubs all day long. Wilson Boulevard is not a side street where ground floor residences can enjoy peace and quiet. Add to this, right from the very first LRPC meeting, the CCA highlighted the need for a community center along this metro corridor, where the greatest number of Arlingtonians reside and where there is a dearth of inequitable access to such community facilities. We requested that the county staff work with the developer on this as a public benefit. Where better a location for a community center than at the center of this corridor? Ultimately, we had no mechanism to see if our recommendation was taken seriously, nor did we have the tools to close in that loop with the developer or even know whether it was ever explored by the county staff and the developer after the respective LRPC or SBRC meetings took place. As to public benefits, Arlington would be receiving for the granting of a significant increase of density on this site, almost double the number of units currently zoned, the change of zoning, and the demolition of the relatively young building, which will create a carbon footprint. We only find out the public benefits at the stage of the Planning Commission meeting. Too late to do anything. And it is a complete stretch for the county to list as a public benefit the demolition of a perfectly fine building that is not even 50 years old, where no attempt has made to minimize the carbon footprints of demolishing it in its entirety. At the meetings, we also highlighted that the public art currently on the site has no meaning or significance to those who live in the area. It's not even memorable. So why is preserving it being claimed as a public benefit? Members of the Planning Commission attempted to pass a motion to request that a locally meaningful and historically relevant public art be developed through the Commission of the Arts. Unfortunately, others on the Commission did not want to create a precedent for such a requirement. However, this is a lost opportunity to have public art that means something to people who reside here by either recalling the rich history of the neighborhood or providing some pleasure or tranquility or making a value statement about Arlington. Let's just say, let the art be memorable and meaningful to the people who live here. Ultimately, what the LRPC and SPRC process for this development highlighted is the need for structural reform of this process, where input by civic associations has weight and truly enhances the result. Our last question is, when and where will you work for a community center for those of us who reside here? And can you push for a commercial space and or a public facility on the Wilson Boulevard side of this building, where we really need to activate it, where future building across the street will have retail as well. And so it doesn't make sense to make that main artery a residential location on that ground level where it could be retail in a very prime location for retail. I understand that we have vacant retails on side streets, but we're not talking about a side street here. So please think about that very carefully because this is a lost opportunity. And having a community center there, even however small, like a gym or a classroom space for people to come and take classes in the area, would benefit people, and it would help to activate in lieu of retail space on that side where the lofts currently are. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hakura. Also, thank you for long investment in this conversation. So, are there any other speakers?
There are no more speakers.
Okay, then I guess the discussions with the board, colleagues, several things came up in the conversations, also in the letters that we received so far. I would say we kind of go through the instances of a structured conversation on the building. First of all, I mean, for me, it was like GLUB zoning, massing, and density, then the affordable housing component, transportation issues, green building status, and biophilia, open space, and public art that was mentioned here, and others. So, if there is no objection, let's discuss the first part: GLUB zoning, massing, and density. Any questions on this? Vice Chair Ferrante.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate you building out the categories just for awareness, and I'll certainly yield back. I don't have questions in each of the categories. I have 2 or 3 questions that seek to try to address, in total, Ms. O'Connell's comments. So I'll yield.
Go ahead, because I believe Mr. O'Connell was about massing, right?
Yes, so that may be the place to start. So first, thank you for coming in and coming in earlier this week. And I want to see if I can break apart and see if I understand these pieces. One of the big concerns that you've written to us about is about the GLUP the special GLUP that was done at the adjacent block. So I just want to see if I can understand from staff, and perhaps Ms. Steinberger, if this was part of the SPRC, but I'll go to staff first, is I think slide 8 of the presentation talks about how we took, the SPRC covered the question, or discussed apparently the question of the adjacent block, which is one down closer to the Whole Foods, and translating the principles in that special GLUP to the subsequent block that we're talking about today. Is that right? And can you talk a little bit about that process?
That's right. The 2500 Wilson Tier 1 Special GLUP Study findings from 2023, in that staff report, LRPC concluded that there was no need to conduct a full Tier 2 review for the site, given the applicability of the guidance in the recently completed Courthouse West Special GLUP Study, the site adjacent. So they determined that the 2500 Wilson study recommended that this project advance to the SPRC in the near term using those guiding principles from that Courthouse West Special GLUP study.
Great, and I don't have memorized, but one of the slides then lays out the bullets of each of the main things, as I understand it, of that conclusion of that, the translation from the 2600 to the 2500 block. I think it may be slide 9 or something that has a number of bullets as to what those specific items are.
That's correct.
And is that LRPC meeting, maybe I misheard, is that LRPC meeting a meeting that would have been the same, Ms. Steinberger, or would have been another leader who would have handled that LRPC? Sorry about that.
No, happy to address that. Thank you for the question. So as staff works with the Long Range Planning Committee of the Planning Commission to review applications for a Tier 1 Special GLUP study, we do that working in conjunction with the leadership and chair of the Long Range Planning Committee. Now, Ms. Steinberger has served in multiple capacities, chairing various SPRCs and the LRPC during her tenure thus far. My sense is that she was not LRPC chair at that time, but certainly, had the opportunity to participate in the meeting and had the familiarity in chairing the SPRC.
Great. Well, thank you for at least trying to clarify to that extent. And then I can yield to other questions. I do have a question a little bit about, this may be for Mr. Haluski. This is regarding, let's see. The other big concern that was mentioned, Ms. O'Connell, was the motion that I made to lead to 12 units, and then I subsequently voted for the 14 units, as you know. There was discussion that preceded that, mostly from Mr. Dorsey, because you gave me an idea to watch this. You suggested as instead of a podcast, I could watch and listen to this, and I did. But there was discussion of the desire for really some great benefits, and there was discussion from Mr. Dorsey, et cetera. But ultimately, the motion that was adopted was a recommendation to go with 14 stories, and there was no codification. There was a desire to have strong community benefits, but no written codification of the discussion that preceded. And I didn't actually make any comments on the additional height and the additional community benefits that may have accrued. So for my part, I guess this is more a comment. I had zero question that I was supportive of the 14 stories. Zero question. I said, yes, I will absolutely be supportive of the 14 stories. That's what I said, in addition to making the original motion on the 12 stories. I would also submit that we have only seen greater evidence in the last 2.5 years since that date that housing supply is a critical problem. So that is what informs my predisposition to support the project. I fully respect that you disagree, and I am very glad for your written and oral testimony, and I respect it. I just am in a place where the need to move forward to invest in housing supply and what I believed at the time in September of 2022 is only accentuated by the housing supply shortages that we've seen since then. I'm sorry, I've listened, and I'm in a place where I unfortunately do not agree and supportive of the project.
Thank you, Vice Chair DeFerranti. On massing, building size, number of stories, Ms. Cunningham.
I guess I'd like to propose that GLUP zoning and density need to be looked at a little bit together. So could we go to our slide that shows the earned density?
Oh, the famous three.
The famous three. We're trying to get some consistency across each project so our community members can follow the ball, and our board members.
I'm sharing it now.
Awesome.
If, the clerk will.
Okay. And as we look at this slide, which is really, really helpful, before we get to the site plan base density, we are assuming that the upglupping and rezoning has happened before that step. So, Mr. Fusarelli, I think this is a question for you. It's a question we hear from the community a lot, and so I just want to keep educating and having conversation about this. How do we as the county ensure that the community is getting the value of the increased base density that comes before this 150 from the proposed GLUP change and the zoning change?
Yeah, no, thank you for that question. And so I think the content on this slide is actually a really good reference, and I would point attention to really the bottom lines of the middle orange box. And so in the additional density, you see the listing of GLUP amendment and then 14 on-site committed affordable units at 60% AMI. So directly, that is really the what's being provided in order to in order for the applicant to elevate its base density per the GLUP from the low office apartment hotel to medium office apartment hotel levels, and that is. There is a provision in our zoning code, I believe it's 1558 H, that speaks to when there's a proposal for a change in GLUP designation, there really is an additional expectation negotiation related to affordable housing in terms of how that additional housing is provided to increase the base density. And so that's looked at separately from the rest of the benefits that are provided as shown in that orange box as well.
Okay, so that's the only one that's locked in this negotiation. It's the affordable housing piece, the 14 on-site CAFs, which is substantial, but the density added into the base here is also substantial.
Correct.
And so is there some attempt to kind of value those two so that the developer's getting something and the county's getting something, the community's getting something? Are they roughly in the same order of magnitude?
It is our opinion that it is. Again, the zoning ordinance does not specify ultimately what that benefit would be. It notes that, there's a discussion and consideration of that separate from the additional density that could be pursued under 1559. I don't know if that helps clarify things a little bit further, but let me try and put it this way. The consideration for the GLUP change and what the project provides for that is specifically focused on additional affordable housing, whereas the additional density that's beyond the elevated base density could include, and here does include, some additional affordable housing, but it also includes public space improvements and transportation improvements and other items.
Okay, great. I think that answers my question, though, Ms. Coffey, you may have had an additional question that follows right onto that on the CAFs.
Ms. Coffey.
It's not totally linear, but I think, this might be, since we've added this slide as more of a standardized practice, I think this might be the first time where I've seen 6 CAFs at the top and then additionally 14 on the bottom. I think you've at this point kind of spoken to that the 6 comes from our normal 1559 or negotiations and requirements. And then there's an additional level of that's, I guess, what is the relationship between the 6 and the 14, and how did we get to kind of those 2 separate numbers?
No, it's a great question. And let me put it this way. Hypothetically, and perhaps there's room for improvement in terms of when we have a GLUP amendment associated with a site plan, there may need to be another box here that further breaks that out because, in earlier months this year, the board has had site plans come before it where there isn't necessarily a GLUP amendment. And so in that hypothetical or in those examples, the amount of committed affordable units that you're seeing being provided is strictly related to the additional density per 1559. In this case, and in other cases where there is a GLUP amendment, it's actually 1558. It's a different section of the zoning ordinance that speaks to the consideration of additional affordable housing just for the GLUP change. And then, so that's what you're seeing down at the bottom in terms of 14. And then once the GLUP change is approved, the 6 CAFs that you're seeing at the top of the box, that is for the consideration of the additional density.
Okay, great. That is helpful. Yeah, I think, maybe we add a 1558 box in the future. But we're kind of meandering into the affordable housing side of things here. So, their base density is the $733,000 contribution or all of their various options. And then you stack on top of that the 14 for the GLUP amendment, and then you stack on top of that the 6 for 1559.
Correct.
Okay, great. I think I'm good on that then.
Thank you, Ms. Coffey. That earns you a master's in affordable housing accounting under our current zoning.
Only for this one. I'm sure next time we'll see something new and interesting again.
Oh, that's what this slide is about, to get us better to do the affordable housing math and everybody understanding that, which is a great benefit, I think. Ms. Cunningham again, Ms. Smith?
I was just going to say, and it's a work in progress that we are all continuing to push on. So thank you all for helping to try to make it a little bit more clear and transparent, especially for a community that's going through it for the first time in a few years. The more we can have a consistent way of talking about it, the better we can help each other understand it. So really appreciate that continued work. I had another massing question or two. You want those now?
Yes, you can.
Okay, so I think we heard from community members about the fact that all the residential entrances are aligned on Wilson and all the retail are aligned on Clarendon. Maybe to the applicant, can you share a little bit about the considerations you had there? Is there any possibility to flip them? They tend to be active at different times of the day, and you would hope that the residents would stumble into the retail and be connected. So can you respond to that a bit?
Sure, happy to. So a couple things to note about that. And I think the biggest driving factor here is something we talked about during our presentation overall, and the fact that the building has 4 sides, right? It really does have 4 active sides. And so there need to be some decisions in terms of where we focus the retail, where we focus the residential, those other things. We have chosen to focus on Clarendon for a couple of reasons, right? We have the open space, then that's part of the recommendation in the GLUP study for the adjacent property that applied to this one. And so our goal, number one, was to activate, use that open space to be able to activate the retail. And with that, we want to make sure we don't detract from it by having competing retail on the other side. Although this is a really active part of the RB corridor, retail loves other retail, right? And the retail environment on that north side across the street on Wilson is not quite as vibrant as we would hope, which is another reason we chose to focus on Clarendon. There are some physical issues related to putting retail in that space on the north side related to where the loading is, and that takes up a lot of the ground floor space that would prevent us from having an adequate depth for some of those, but a fine depth for residential. And I guess the last thing I'll add is, we did start with a proposal for 16 stories. And we brought that number down as a result of some discussions and recommendations from staff and the community. And so that meant that we were more constrained about where we could put our residential, frankly. We had to still hit numbers that made sense, numbers that worked in this area. And so that kind of forced us to look for alternative locations for residential, which again led us to put some of that on Wilson Boulevard.
Great. I had one last question on massing for setbacks. I think it sounds like we have no setback on Barton and Cleveland. And I think we heard from one community member there was some discomfort about that. Can we share a little bit why we're not having both setbacks at ground level and step backs to lighten the building?
Happy to. I think
we get a visual while we answer this question. Thank you.
Brilliant idea.
Yeah, it's mostly step backs. So the neighborhood manors not really setbacks, but it's not an adjacent property.
Yeah, let's look at it. I think it's courthouse Clarendon.
I think the first thing to point out as that gets pulled up is that our GLUP study staff report essentially said that the SPRC process would address this. So it didn't say thou shalt have a step back or a setback. It said let's look at this during the SPRC process. And so we did. And part of what we found was that, again, due to there being 4 sides of the building, there can't be step back and setbacks on every side. We don't have a full layer cake on all sides. It would not allow for the density yield that we were looking that would make this a viable building as a result. What we did do, and that's what led to the decision on this frontage to not have step backs. We do have step backs, setbacks, variation on other frontages. What we did do here to help accommodate that was to vary the materiality, and you can't really see it as well in this slide. I think we may have some better slides to show you that, but to achieve that same goal, right? The goal of a step back or a setback is to break up the massing, ensure that you don't have this kind of monolith, particularly on a relatively tall building. And so, one of the ways to achieve that is through step backs or setbacks. Another way is through variation in materials. And so given the kind of things that I went through, we decided that the materials were the best route for this particular frontage on the west side of the building.
And so on the right-hand side there, like we typically are trying to have a bottom, a middle, and a top, right, to kind of break that up. In this case, the middle is very, very disproportionately large, and I suspect you played with that a whole bunch of different ways, but is there consideration of an additional materiality or color change that would lighten that?
We did, and a lot of this design, again, was driven by the reduction in height from the 16 stories. We were able to achieve a greater variation with 16 stories. Obviously, you have more space to play with. You can taper the building more. You can make it a little more interesting. Again, we brought it to the 14, and that comes with trade-offs. It comes with, a lower building, but less opportunity to vary material, to vary your kind of step back and some of your massing.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you. Just as an addition on I'm sure that it's not an easy decision to make, to choose where the commercial facade of the building is. But here, as a matter of actually a urban design discussion and pre-existing condition, the activity that Clarendon Commons generates down the corridor that is now very, very walkable, etc., just suggests. And you located the open space, which works with the retail, which works with the general attractiveness of the corner. The significant corner is there. The problem on the other side on Wilson is that they are not corresponding, or what I call handshake items. So there are not other buildings that do the same or posture in the same way, while on the Clarendon Boulevard side there are. So this is actually a win for Ms. O'Connell, who lives across the street, right, on the part. So the other questions on this issue? Shall we discuss transportation discussion? There was some bus stops, etc. Yes.
Great. I'll start with something that I actually don't know came up in any of the discussion, but is more from my personal experience, which is that the two worst intersections from the pedestrian experience at this site are Cleveland and Clarendon, and then Wilson and Barton. Can we talk about the site improvements that are being made on those? The Barton one, there's like a 5-direction interplay there, and it can be very confusing and even potentially dangerous.
So I'll start with Cleveland and Clarendon. Sorry, I want to make sure I get the roads straight. So the applicant is proposing a curb extension at the southwest corner. It, again, just kind of reduces the pedestrian crossing distance. We did have a Vision Zero project there, I think it was last year, where we did, I think it was 2 of the other corners, just, again, looking at some improvements. We are well aware that people have concerns there and continuing to monitor that through the Vision Zero program. Similarly, at the intersection of Barton and Clarendon, the applicant's also doing curb extensions there, actually on 3 of the corners there, so that should help tremendously. And then with Barton and Wilson, again, doing curb extension on their corner, the southwest corner of that intersection. And again, similar to the earlier intersection I mentioned, we had a Vision Zero project there as well. In that case, looking at the Hardin center line, the bollards there. So again, we're well aware, and because these are county streets, we continue to monitor, and if changes are needed, we'll put those in place.
Great, thank you. I don't know if the applicant wants to speak to any of that.
I think that covered it very well.
Okay, great. I'll pass along.
Thank you, Ms. Coffey. Other questions on transportation? I have one on the bus stop. So there seems to be a decision not to do a full-fledged bus stop, but the Planning Commission was said that the trees and the configuration of the sidewalk doesn't allow for that. Is there no regular design possible that includes a bus stop? There was also an argument that said that the bus stop kind of hinders a view of retail, etc., which I don't buy so much, because bus stops nowadays work very well with retail. They're extremely translucent. What is our general approach to these? Is that really part of a site plan, or is it part of our transportation system decisions and what is appropriate there?
So with the site plans, we kind of look at case by case, like any site plan. We do have bus stop design guidelines, that specify when certain improvements are recommended. Maybe not required, but recommended. So there is a base threshold for when we would want those additional improvements. So looking at the, I think it was the bus shelter specifically. Today, that I forget the number of users that bus stop has, but it's under what it would typically trigger. The bus shelter with the new development, hopefully, that could happen. But that, again, we did talk about that a little bit, and it kind of came down to some of those other factors that were discussed at Planning Commission. We did make sure, though, that when discussing this with the applicant, they did do the curb extension so that at least the buses don't have to pull out of traffic. It keeps them flowing pretty efficiently. So that improvement was in place and was strongly recommended for this.
Yeah, the reason why I'm bringing that up is because I sense that in the last decade or so, Clarendon and Wilson, Clarendon Boulevard and Wilson Boulevard as high bus service routes have really evolved. People like the bus service on them, and we like them back. So we added facilities, far better bus stop facilities along. I mean, just walk out of this building, and I think that this will continue. And in a building with 0.43, this is a good proposition, actually. This is really a high service multimodal transportation place. Why would we be skimpy on this? I would definitely take some space. I mean, make the extra effort to do some extra work on my curb to accommodate, an appropriate bus. It doesn't have to be the Taj Mahal. I mean, it's just a shelter. Other questions? Mr. Spain, I see your light.
You thought I was leaving? So I don't think in the order we had set up, I just want to, this is for the applicant, more kind of going back to talk about housing, affordable housing. I'm sure we're going to have some level of conversation about that. There was some concern, right, about not looking at really the art of the possible and getting to some 3-bedroom units, right? We've heard a lot of conversation, at least I have, studios, apartments, 1-bedrooms, they're all good too, but 3-bedroom. Can you talk a little bit about your bottom line, business bottom line, and why perhaps it was not achievable to get to 3 in this project? And if so, what would that look like if you could have done that? Because there is a high demand, there's a need, for that type of makeup and housing here in Arlington. And we're looking at that, at least I am, in a lot of these new developments that come up. So talk to us a little bit about that community, about what are you seeing with this particular project? Why you couldn't make 3 happen?
Sure. So great question, and something that goes into the discussions between the applicant and staff kind of throughout the process. What we do very early in the process when we identify, as Ms. Martin showed, kind of those 3 buckets of density, where they come from, and obviously affordable housing is a large part of that. And so we will typically work with county staff to identify kind of what the needs are and what the desires are for the community. In this case, in working with staff, we came to that conclusion based on values that it would be more valuable to have the larger number of units, and while not achieving any 3-bedroom units, to achieve more than 50% of those 2-bedroom units. I can't speak to overall need and requirements and what folks in the community are necessarily looking for. I'm sure the housing staff has a good handle on that, and that goes into the basis of that negotiation. But really, in the end, there is a number that needs to be hit, in terms of value. And if there are more 3-bedroom units, there will necessarily be fewer overall units. And that may be the right decision. But I think that's one that it is a balance and a trade-off that's got to be had in all discussions as we kind of go through this.
Yeah, thanks. I only highlight that because, of course, there is these trade-offs, and it was laid out in one of our reports. At least some of the commissioners on the Housing Commission brought this concern up. So thus is why, I kind of raised this, elevated again for the public to hear. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Spain. Other issues on green building standards, biophilia.
Could I tag on to the housing question? I think we heard in our public comment, I know you all were here to listen in as well, the concerns about fair housing and source of funds. I know a brand new building doesn't always, have the price point that gets you to a voucher fitting, even with the kind of zip code level. Do you have a sense, though, how long it would take before one of those 3 bedrooms, for instance, would be relatively, kind of get to the median income? So you look very puzzled. So the question is, we often conflate in Arlington our CAFs with our vouchers. We have almost like 98% overlap between the two. In theory, the vouchers should be an additional to the CAFs. We sometimes use them to take a 60% down to 30%, et cetera. But will any of these units that aren't CAFs in the foreseeable future be eligible for vouchers? And then how do you ensure that there is no discrimination around source of funds?
I can attempt to answer that one. So I guess to answer the second question first, like how do we ensure that there's no discrimination? Other firms might treat it differently. They have management firms in-house. We do not when it comes to residential management. So we will typically contract with a third-party property manager who will follow all those guidelines to a T. Second, I think in terms of forecasting affordability, it's difficult to say exactly when a 3-bedroom unit, I think we have approximately 29 to 30 units in this building in total, will become affordable for the median income, specifically within the RB corridor, but really within Arlington in general. So I'm not entirely sure how to answer that one.
Okay. I appreciate you trying.
Thank you, Ms. Cunningham. Have we concluded on affordable housing? Good. So transportation probably as well. Green building standards and biophilia. Any? We can include open space because it's part of the.
I had a couple quick questions on transportation, if we could.
Then go ahead.
The metro elevator project that's been long delayed was raised again as a concern for capacity. Is anyone able to comment on the timing and sort of the mitigations in the meantime?
I can provide a bit of context for that. So so yes, the county is still working towards the installation of those 2 new elevators for the courthouse metro station. Those 2 would replace the current one. They've been planned for in prior CIPs and the current CIP, but the timeline has been kind of pushed back a few times just because the cost to design and construct has escalated beyond the original cost estimate. It's also dependent on grant funding. We've applied in the past for state funding and have not received it. However, the county is now applying for NVTA funding. That was part of the consent agenda today. That would cover the design for the elevators. If approved, that funding wouldn't be dispersed until fiscal year 2030, and then the design would still take a couple years, probably ending in like 2033 at the latest, we hope. Actual construction would then not be until fiscal year 2033, and then take another 2 to 3 years to complete. So that means we're roughly looking at 2035 or 2036 for completion. I suspect that the CIP will, again, continue to be updated as we've done in the past as this project moves along. I do want to note, though, that staff did really appreciate hearing these concerns at the Transportation Commission, Planning Commission, at the letter that was sent, just because we appreciate the support for the transportation projects we're trying to keep moving forward. With this project going to the MVTA for funding, I do want to note that there will be a public comment period in the spring where members of the public can just kind of voice their support or opposition to different projects. So if there's still the interest at that time, we would encourage the public to comment at that in spring, just to kind of help move this project along. And if you subscribe to the county's transportation newsletters, we'll most likely include a blurb in that as well, just encouraging folks to comment.
Great. And then lastly, could you touch on parking and pickup drop-off and the considerations here? The parking ratio is about 0.42, which is a little lower than typical, but I understand there's some logic to that.
Yeah, so we do follow the off-street multifamily parking guidelines for, I always forget the full title. It's for the metro areas that do lay out specific minimum ratios lower than the zoning ordinance would otherwise require, again, specific to areas like this where it's proximate to metro, and we have data just showing that really people use transit and other modes of transportation rather than vehicles. So we don't need as much parking, and if we have even lower parking, people are less likely to have a car, they're more likely to use our transportation system. It improves the entire system as a whole, reduces traffic. So we're following that guidance. That guidance was even lower than what they're proposing. But so we were happy to have lower, but we're also happy with what they're proposing with this ratio.
Great, and then pick up, drop off, the Ubers and delivery.
The
Can you give us
applicant
some hope?
proposes 2 spaces on North Barton Street, right at the residential lobby.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have to say that this is the blocks of the area, including the west of the Navy League blocks, they are relatively known for having exquisite access to metro, which is a courthouse metro with 2 entrances and an elevator clunky. Needs updating, no question about that. But they are actually high service, I mean, compared to other metro stations. Thank you for that. Any other discussion on this? Green building standards and biophilia, open space. We heard about public art here. So to understand that, the plan is to take the current artwork by Jim Sanborn that was one of the initial ones in the Arlington collection, by the way. I mean, it's just a couple of years later than Nancy Holt's Dark Star, and located in the new open space. And that for a contribution of $200,000. I have a question about this. Maybe I'm full disclosure, I was a member of the Public Art Committee. And, normally we would say, does this rhyme with our Public Art Master Plan, the one that we adopted? Because this master plan called for, significant upgrade of the presence and function of public art in the public space. And this is a place of opportunity, obviously. I mean, it's a very frequented space. Can you elaborate a little bit what the thinking is?
Yeah, so the Public Art Master Plan does identify the existing public art and visible forces on the site right now. And like you mentioned, that is a part of the county's permanent public art collection. And in accordance with the Strategic Direction Action 1.9.6 of that Public Spaces Master Plan to incorporate public art in alignment with the Public Art Master Plan, the applicant did agree to locate public art on the southern portion of the site. If the existing sculpture cannot be relocated on the site after construction, the decommissioning process would be followed. And the piece for the same value adjusted for inflation will be required per the proposed condition. The applicant's intention is to commission a new piece of public art on site by Jim Sanborn, who is the artist of the existing piece on the site. So if you have any.
Well, we have a process for that.
Right.
The Public Art Committee, there will be, what is interesting to me is that we are already locking in on the artist, because normally we have a process of selecting an artist. I understand that there is the sequence from Jim Sanborn to Jim Sanborn makes some sense, but it's not, baked in process. The Public Art Committee needs to look at this, right?
Correct. They've stated that their intention is to work with this artist, but that doesn't mean that anything is locked in. It'll still have to go through the public art process.
Can you explain to me what decommissioning really means? Does this mean that this is kind of taken down and disappears and the magnetic lodestone is gone?
I'll have to check back in with public art staff to give you specifics.
I'm very interested in that. Just because I believe that decommissioning is actually a part of the process itself.
Yes.
And it has to be respectful and actually preserving the artwork. That's to me. Any other questions on that? Mr. Spain.
Hold on, I don't know if my colleague, were you? Or,
I had open space comments.
okay. Mine's on art, and I'll just make it quick. So let me just say this. First, thank you, Commissioner Steinberger, for being here today. I went back and looked at some of the comments that were made surrounding the commission itself and concern about the commission needing to look more and do more when it comes to like cultural inclusivity as it relates to public art. Can you talk a little bit about, some thoughts perhaps that came up in these conversations about what more perhaps, not just I would say it's germane to your commission, but I think there's a point to be made here in this area where high Vietnamese presence in the past, whatever art we decide to do, what happens down the road should be somewhat germane to the community and background and historical aspects. But before you get to that, I also want to give you a shout out, because I believe if you don't, praise people in public, you can do it in private. I just, for those that don't know, for many years I've watched Commissioner Steinberger, who's also, I don't know if I can still say you're a new mother, but you sat up here. Yeah, wow. You sat up here and you've had your little one with you. And the sacrifices you've made for this county in public service is commendable. So, and you're here today, and I know you're a mother of young, so the sacrifice, it does not go unnoticed. So thank you. So public art, planning commission, y'all had a little conversation about that?
So first, thank you. Yes, the little human is now 3 and potty trained. Can I get that on the record? Thank you. So, it can be done. No, it's contributing and giving back to Arlington County is something that I care greatly about. And you just kind of make it work. Y'all, give so much of your time to the county as well. And I think it's just something you prioritize what is important. But going back to your initial question with regards to the conversation we had at Planning Commission about the public art aspect of this, and apologies, I don't have the exact language of sort of the motion that was made by Commissioner Patel related to the sort of cultural inclusivity and what, historic reference to the community that, we could apply as a standard to art installations, public art requirements across any projects. The conversation, as I recall it, really focused in a couple areas. There was some conversation that maybe the motion was a little too broad for kind of the context. There's also some concern that maybe some folks expressed a concern that the motion was too narrow in terms of, the project in front of us. So it's sort of an interesting dichotomy there of how people reacted to that. I think overwhelmingly, though, there was a concern expressed by multiple commissioners that was this the correct forum to sort of make a blanket statement that this would, become a standard that applied across all development. And we as a planning commission did not necessarily think that was in our purview to have. I personally had a concern that the way that the motion was crafted, it would only deal with consulting with the Arts Commission and not with the HALRB, the Historic Affairs and Landmark Review Board. And I felt that if we were talking about looking at the history of the community of Arlington in any context, we needed to make sure that the HALRB voices were heard in that regard as well. And it seemed like maybe on the spot within the confines of our Planning Commission hearing just, a week ago, maybe we didn't, my personal view, again, I think others felt this way as well, but there was a discussion on this, is that maybe this was not the context to make what would become could be treated as a policy going forward, and that maybe there was more conversation and sort of some discussions with the Arts Commission, with HALRB, with Planning Commission, with the county board, whomever, with staff from the different organizations in the county that could be discussed in that regard, so we could come up with a standard that might make sense to apply more broadly. I was certainly compelled by that reasoning. I'm also the one speaking with y'all today, so I can present that more fully. Were another planning commissioner to be speaking in that regard today, just by happenstance, they might express this slightly differently. That was my understanding and how I felt coming out of that conversation.
Thank you very much, duly noted, and I think there is room for additional conversations as it relates to not just the process by which these projects come to the Planning Commission, but do we need to look at things differently? And I think, again, that decision was not for the commission perhaps to make, but I think because it's in the record and there was conversations there, and I kind of go back and watch all these meetings, to be quite honest, because it's just good to do. As it relates to this particular area, I think I'll look and speak with my colleagues and see what more we can do in this space. So thank you for your perspective, and I understand the aspect of your role as the commission to your personal piece. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Spain. Thank you, Ms. Steinberger. Ms. Coffin.
Yeah. I think just a comment on the open space that we heard from public commenters as well is, I think this is going to be a vast improvement. I have never, like the current open space, because it is elevated off of the sidewalk level, has always felt almost like a private front yard for this building as it is. And it's very unapproachable. It's very, it feels like it is grass on top of concrete, which is what it is. And so I'm really grateful, I think, with how this has turned out, because I think it is actually going to make that, I think people talk about the like privately owned open space in Arlington sometimes feeling problematic. And this is one where the current state of it, I do think it is not a good use of privately owned open space. And so I'm very optimistic that this is going to be a huge improvement, at least relative to that aspect on this site. I think we had a letter to us, and I know I've talked early on in this process with you all about the childcare that is on site. I think, it is a fully enrolled childcare. There are a lot of parents who depend upon this location because that's what they've built their lives and their schedules around. It is extremely disruptive for something like that to close, for every parent to find something new in the area that works for their kid and their price point that has an opening. That's a huge challenge. And so can you talk with us about what is the relocation plan? Is there a return plan? Is there capacity within the retail segment of this building to have the childcare fit in the future after redevelopment? And what do those conversations look like?
Sure, I'll start a little bit with some of the requirements and the elements related to the public process, and I'll let Mr. Glavin talk a little bit more about the discussions with the daycare. But in every site plan that is approved, there are, as you all know, a significant number of standard site plan conditions. And one of those standard site plan conditions is residential and retail relocation, where in the event that there are existing residential tenants or retail tenants in a building to be redeveloped, that there needs to be a relocation plan and work with AED to help rehouse those either people or businesses, hopefully within Arlington. In addition to that, we knew from just experience, both professionally and personally with kids, that this is a big deal and something that needs to be reviewed and taken seriously. So we've taken steps during the process kind of outside of that formal requirement to have conversations with AED about opportunities for placement of the daycare in other locations within the county. So, and I'm not, Dan, I'll let you talk about kind of conversations with.
Yeah, it's definitely something that has not been resolved to date. It's a top priority of ours to not only figure it out, but be communicative around how we figure that out with the tenant. I think going beyond talking with AED, what we have tried to do is not only look within our own portfolio, but also leverage relationships to see what buildings might have available ground floor space. But I think at the end of the day, we need to find a solution that works for the tenant as well. It's not just if I go find a space and say, oh, it might work, she still has to agree to it. So I would compare, although she is one of the important tenants on the ground floor, I would compare her to some of the other office tenants who also have term left on their leases. So it's not atypical for this development, like other ones, to get approved and then have to kind of work through occupancy issues.
Okay. And what are the timelines, particularly your notice to the leaseholders and how long that would give them, particularly noting again that parents have to find new arrangements? And if approved, I guess, where do you project needing to make that notice that they would no longer be able to do it? Obviously, mid-school year is probably one of the worst times for this to happen.
Right. It varies by lease, and so I don't have that tenant's lease expiration off the top of my head available. But I think for us, there are a number of factors that will enable this project to move forward, capital markets being one of them. So even if we were to get the green light to go ahead today, it still will take a number of months, if not years, to get it shovel ready. So there's plenty of time to figure out a solution that works for everyone, and it will continue to be a priority for us.
And I'll just add, while the tenant obviously has its own private rights under the lease. In terms of the timing of the retail relocation, the applicant is required, in order to have the first permit issued, the demolition and land disturbing activity permit, that is the time, prior to that is the time at which it needs to be, they need to be referred to AED.
Great. I'll leave that there.
Thank you. Mr. Ferranti and Ms. Cunningham.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is, I alluded, Mr. Haluski, to the, we received also a letter concerning the encroachment, and I think it's probably first to staff, and then also a little bit to the applicant, and this is, it concerns the notice that was sent, and I don't know if this is familiar, but I'd just like to see, there are essentially three claims. There was a cover letter that may have had some inaccurate language. There was a timing question. I've shared this with our attorney, who says that this, if I'm not mistaken, you've read this, and we complied with the law with respect to notice, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So then, from Mr. Haluski, and then to the applicant, you know, can you speak at all to the effort to notify people of this? I'm not sure whether it's just Mr. Haluski or who in the real estate team. I hope you've seen this and taken a look, and we certainly try to make sure everyone has notice. If you comply with the law, that's sufficient, and we also try to make sure it's effective notice, which is a separate piece. But can you speak a little to this? Thank you.
Certainly. Thanks for the question. Yeah, so what's required by the law is publication in the newspaper. So that's sort of the baseline. I think just from a practice standpoint, we asked the applicant to send notices to all adjacent property owners, simply because the legally required notice in the newspaper, we don't feel that most people are going to see that or know that it's not really effective communication to solicit that community feedback that we're looking for. So we do ask the applicants for all vacation applications and encroachment applications to send out notices. It's generally a cover letter, a survey response form that is provided, where they can send their comments directly back to us in the Real Estate Bureau staff, as well as a copy of the pertinent application, in this case, the encroachment application. So in this case, I think the letter that came back did cite a couple of deficiencies with that notice, one of which was in the cover letter describing the associated site plan or the associated redevelopment as having been approved, which it hasn't. It's being considered contemporaneously by the county board. And also that it did not include a copy of the encroachment plat, so it was perhaps a little difficult for folks to understand what the encroachment entailed. As far as timing, we generally, it is sent by certified mail. It is generally done as soon as possible after the site plan is accepted, although a lot of times the particulars for the encroachment areas or vacation areas are in flux as it's going through that process. I would point out that we did receive over 20 responses to those surveys. Generally, we don't receive nearly that number of responses for a project. We usually receive 5 or fewer. Oftentimes, we don't receive any responses at all. So at least from staff's perspective, although there were deficiencies with the notice, it did solicit a lot of community feedback. And it also gave staff the opportunity to, particularly with the 1 or 2 that noted these issues, to reach out to those folks in the community, provide, for example, copies of the encroachment plat,
Sure.
so that they could see and had ability to respond in a timely manner.
So the purpose of the letters is to provide effective notice, to make sure that it's an additional step beyond what is required in the law. And in this case, it appears to have been successful. Certainly was successful in this case. Is there anything that you wanted to add?
Sure. I'd just add that, I've done these many times over the years, and they tend to be a little bit confusing, even in the best of cases, given that we're dealing with kind of pretty niche real estate questions. In this case, as you noted and Mr. Haluski noted, there were some errors in those mailings. That was a mistake on our part. I do think it's important to note that the letter always has information about when the hearings are taking place, and also to contact either staff or me personally if there are questions. And almost every encroachment or vacation application that goes through, I get some telephone calls with folks saying, what is this, what's happening, and always happy to talk that through with folks. So it sounds like the folks who did read this did have the opportunity to contact Mr. Haluski. They did not contact me, though I would have been happy to chat and explain any of that. But I think in this case, that backstop kind of worked to be able to ensure that staff was contacted about it.
Got it. That's helpful. I do think this step is one we obviously should continue, and the effective notice for me is sufficient. Just wanted to make sure we were thorough. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. DeFranti. No, we may want to have a motion. Ms. Coffey.
Thank you. Please bear with me as this is a long one. I move the county board adopt the county manager's recommendation as stated in the board report dated September 9th, 2025, namely to adopt the resolution attached to the board report to approve the general land use plan amendment to change the land use designation for the parcel located at 2500 Wilson Boulevard from low office apartment hotel to medium office apartment hotel, to adopt the ordinance attached to the board report to rezone the property at 2500 Wilson Boulevard from CO 1.5 mixed use district to CO 2.5 mixed use district, and to adopt the ordinance attached to the board report for SPLA 24-00034, parentheses, SP number 220, to permit the construction of a 14-story mixed-use building with approximately 343,719 square feet of residential GFA and 14,032 square feet of retail GFA, with modifications for additional density exclusions, setbacks, reduced residential and retail parking ratio, compact parking ratio, and other modifications as necessary to achieve the proposed development located at 2500 Wilson Boulevard, subject to the conditions of the ordinance. I further move the county board adopt the county manager's recommendation as stated in the board report dated September 5th, 2025, namely to adopt the ordinance attached to the board report to permit the encroachment of an electrical transformer vault into an existing easement for public street and utilities purposes on the property owned by TMG 2500 Wilson Boulevard LLC, located at 2500 Wilson Boulevard, with conditions.
Second.
And it's moved and seconded. Ms. Coffey, do you want to speak to your motion?
Sure, absolutely. I think, I do think that this building is part of a kind of strange transition zone between Clarendon and Courthouse right now. That is actually my daily walk to this building here, and my office here involves going directly past this site. And so I am intimately familiar with it, how it feels as a pedestrian, and a community member and a neighbor. And I think that this is going to be a huge enhancement to the connectivity and making it feel like it is truly a contiguous neighborhood, as opposed to, Clarendon's over here, Courthouse is over here. They're two separate things, and really helping them kind of speak to each other and integrate with each other. The public space is a huge asset, and I do want to speak to the community space aspect a little bit, because Mr. Manager knows that I have been bringing this up, that none of our existing community center spaces are metro accessible, let alone Clarendon Courthouse. The closest we have to a metro accessible community space is Central Library, which is wonderful, but it is library hours, it is library focused, it is often booked up. I've tried to book community events for their spaces, and it's really limiting, partly because a lot of people want to have metro accessible community events and engagements, and I myself have not really taken advantage of a lot of our classes and other things that we provide through Parks and Rec, because I am realistically, after, working all day, I'm not going to drive myself to a new community center to take a class when I would probably do it if I could walk down the street. And so I think this is really something critically important. I would love to have a grander discussion about this during our CIP that comes up again. And it really, I think as kind of a generational development priority, I do think that we need to look at this. I think the public spaces master plan should really consider this and speak to this. I think I brought it up in our briefing on the public spaces master plan because I think it is real. I think it is a really important thing that we have, public spaces to gather that are not profit-centered and oriented. Sure, the corridor has a lot of places for people to go and to hang out, but there are places where you are largely expected to spend money, and that's fine, but I think we deserve to have a broader conversation around how do we get true community center space in the corridor. So I just wanted to really validate that because I think it is spot on and super important. And with that, I am still worried about the child care center. I think this is a really, really, really important thing to me. It's something that can be managed okay, or it can go really, really poorly. And so I want to be on the most positive side of things there. But overall, I think this is an excellent site plan. And I look forward to hopefully it actually moving forward at some point. I know that our development community is hitting some walls in the capital markets and just with the rising costs of doing development. So I appreciate all of our staff's work, all of our community members' work here, and I'm pleased to offer this motion to the board.
Thank you, Ms. Coffey. Mrs. Payne.
I'll speak to my my second. I think my colleague, Ms. Maureen Coffey, so eloquently put it out there. Thank you for your comments. Let me just say this. So this project has been going on for a while, and we're finally at a point in the county board. There were discussions, we've heard this today, of issues that came up and concerns before my tenure, quite honestly. And Mr. O'Connell, I want to speak kind of directly to you because for a second, and thank you for your persistence and engaging with not only the county board and staff in this process. You are one of hundreds of thousands of people here who have, this project is right next door to you. And I hear you, and we have, I think, done our due diligence to weigh, you gave us three options, but, to weigh any type of adverse impact of a project to, quite honestly, something I heard today, we're in a very difficult financial climate and we need more housing. That's for sure. So there's a lot we have to square and consider when we make these decisions. And there are a lot of folks who are looking at us who I believe really are banking on us to make these hard calls. What I found in 8 months is that we have these processes also by which we hopefully get engagement from the community, and that during that process, right, that the community is being heard. And so, we don't get into the fourth quarter and we're having, I call it these performer type conversations on a lot of things that have already been addressed, but they have not been acted upon, thus wasting a lot of people's time, quite honestly. So I'm supporting this because, one, I think it is where we need to be in this corridor. We need this housing. I hear the concern, whether it's community space and whether it's also concerns about childcare facilities, which is serious. I'm telling you, I have a granddaughter, 4 years old, and it is hard finding a place for my kids. But I think Ms. Coffey knocked it out the park when we talk about community space, and there's disparities in where those community spaces, quite honestly, in Arlington are placed. We all know this. So how do we address that, whether it's by CIP and some other plan down the road? you have my commitment on that, because we hear you and we see you. The question becomes that, again, this is not just pro forma. We're saying to get it across the finish line. What are we going to do to act upon it? And that's where you're going to have to hold all of us accountable. So I want to thank staff. I want to thank the developers who saw this project through. I understand we're in some very uncertain times financially. And we need to figure out ways. I tell folks all the time, there's a word in my office: no is not an option. Tell me how to get to yes. And so let's get this housing built. Let's get things moving in the right directions, but also let's continue to have these engagements, these intentional engagements with our community and our critical stakeholders, because many of them, of course, this is their lives. These are their lives. And you and I, we talked earlier this week, about projects that have happened in the past that you've been a part of, and how are those conversations with communities still taking place long after the county board makes a decision, right? Following it through. So is there more work to be done? Yes. Is it perfect? No. Want to appreciate you also talking about the administrative oversight you made in that letter, an encroachment letter. That admitting that means a lot, because people receive that in a community in a different way, and the fact that you showcased that there was a problem and wasn't a problem that it was on our watch, that's commendable. Thank you for doing that. But let's try not to make the same mistake twice. Okay. With that being said, Mr. Chair, I'm done. I fully support this motion.
Thank you, Mr. Spain. Who goes next? Ms. Cunningham.
I will be supporting the motion as well. I would say that I still have some misgivings about the massing compromises that have been made. And as you get to the final design, I would encourage you to try to break up some of those solid, very tall walls. But I think I can get my head around it for now. I would also ask that you consider, as you're moving forward, even if we don't have a bus stop yet, what does a bus waiting area look like? Can some overhang of the building or seating of some sort be close enough to where you can see the bus coming, but you can get out of the elements a bit? On the community spaces, I think this is going to be a continued dialogue. Our community centers were placed a long time ago, and some of them haven't had much work done to them since a long time ago. And so we've got a couple jewels in the system, and we've got to figure out how to move forward with equity and access for all. I would lift up those community partners that have really opened their spaces. So George Mason being one, Amazon being another. And I know it's a smaller project, but in some ways, as you're thinking about the final lobby design or the final amenities design, is there something that might be shared, or on the retail side that there might be space for a little yoga or whatever? Because we do have that need, and it also drives activity in the corridor. I wanted to highlight biophilia because we didn't spend a lot of time on it. And at Planning Commission, I know there was a technical challenge, and I was disheartened that Commissioner Bagley was able to bring forward the concerns that Dr. Byrne has, because he's been so consistent in pushing us to ensure native plants and milkweed wherever we can fit it. And then finally, I would just say to Ms. Hakura, your concerns about the site plan process, how it feels, how it goes, how we might improve it for a modern Arlington is taken very seriously by those of us up here and by staff, and we are working really hard. I've tried to give you a lens into a few pieces of it here and there. Our community benefit audit will be out later this fall that will kind of have another round of conversation. I think it's going to be a continued conversation, but I appreciate you coming and sharing and continuing to push us there, because it is really important. And likewise, the Arts Commission, I'm liaison to the Arts Commission. I did elevate the Planning Commission's conversation to them, that local relevance and the local touch of how we get to the public art. There is a system in place, and we need to test on it a little bit and may need to put some additional bounds in there. But overall, I'm supportive of the project. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cunningham. Vice Chair Ferranti.
Thank you. In the pieces that you referred us to, September and July of 2022, there's discussion as to whether there's decades-old discussion of whether we ought to have a bullseye or a approach to density or whether we ought to have a spine. It's 2025. If ever there was a place where transit-oriented development is needed, this is the site. It is right next to 2 metro stops. The big picture is if there's a place for density. All of those, for example, who opposed missing middle said, I support transit-oriented development. So the big picture, this is an outstanding project that we have to do. Of course I want a community center. Of course I want 40%. Of course I want, platinum. Which of those, we all have spoken to them, but the process, this is why I think both of you have a reasonable concern. Because if you listen to Christian and Katie and me a little bit, we all said nice things about how we want it to be super great. But that's not a majority, number one. And number two, as a lawyer, it should be what's written down, right? Because then you have a written piece. So you mentioned problems with the process, and I agree with you, that there is a challenge in that we all want to be nice and we want more of more. But when we say we want more of more, people sometimes say, that means I got it, which isn't the case if it's not written down, as you know, or if it's not agreed to. There are occasional instances where a developer will agree to something. And I think our attorney would say, we don't have legal ability to enforce, but developers always do live by it. So I think you've got reasonable concerns that led you to this issue. And I'm sorry, I think that's a hard thing because there's the process and then there's what we say up here on the dais. And we should say we want to meet the community's needs. But if we don't vote on it and put it in writing, I don't believe that it should be, that it's easy for it to be binding. So that's just a thought that I could have easily not said out loud, but I think it's the truth and I feel it's important to share it. And then I'll just end, tucked in, and I hope this is okay to say, tucked into the conversation is Ms. Coffey testifying to us in September in 2022 and saying, housing supply, I'm a renter. And that aligns with, well, not quite, a little different, but Ms. Green also spoke, I guess I just feel like it's worth coming back to the big picture. This is essential. That the parking lot that I occasionally used to go to near Whole Foods, this building, we have to have density there. Because if we don't, it's going to cost $4,000 for a 1-bedroom apartment soon instead of $2,500. So I'm sorry, that's just a few thoughts. I'm enthusiastically supporting the project.
Thank you, Vice Chair Ferranti. Everybody said everything. Everything was said, but not everybody said that. But I have a couple of footnotes, especially to the memory that Ms. O'Connell and Ms. Hakura brought back from the conversation on the club. I want to remember. I remember very well the way I was thinking back then, and the way I was conducting this conversation with the community and the neighbors and the advocates. So it was about closing the chapter of the 80s, looking again at our model of transit-oriented development and the corridor development, making sure that we had 3 enormously important blocks between 2 enormously important metro stations with a lot of development, a lot of people living there, but for some reason these 3 blocks didn't get to be developed at all, which didn't make any sense. I mean, anybody who walks up and down the Rosslyn-Boston corridor, any urbanist, any developer, any neighbor will tell you, that's odd, there is a missing tooth there. Why? 3 of them, actually. So, and the process that we had back then was to answer this question and to specifically also to answer the question, what kind of urban feeling do we want? What kind of a community do we want this to look like? And one of the things that I remember going very, very focused after is to find out, the diversity of massing and diversity of buildings, bigger buildings, more people. That's not a question. But look how we got there. The Charleston is 12 stories, right? The Commodore is 20 stories. The Wendy, new, 16 stories. 1521 North Courthouse is 12 stories. 2200 Wilson is 12 stories. This building here is sculpted up to 24 stories. Navy League is 7 stories. Residence Inn, the hotel back here, 10 stories. So you see, this is an amazing group of buildings, and we put a 14th story in there. I think that in terms of how this massing feels, the variability, the air, the carving out public space, paying attention to these assets, and delivering amazing walkability, by the way, and actually the mid node to the transportation asset to metro walkability is actually successful. I think when I see the building from the point of view of the overall evolving urbanism since the late 80s, I see a lot of progress here. This is actually good stuff. I hear Ms. Hakura on, this was a perfectly good building, but it was the wrong style of building. Remember the previous one was what, Sears? A building without a facade? I mean, just a box. So yeah, we learned something up from all that. And the biggest lesson here, there are 2 lessons that I get from all this discussion and, being in front of the realization of the first of the 3 blocks. Number 1, what the decisions that we make today really matter because we want that these buildings serve for a very far longer time than the previous generations of them. Both generations, both the buildings of the 60s and the buildings of the 80s. And the second thing is we really need to focus on services for people. I really applaud Ms. Coffey's comments on public facilities and amenities. This is tremendously important because until now, the many residents of the corridors didn't claim this kind of stuff, and now they do. And it's about time to think very carefully how we deliver, because until now, the public space for Clarendonians was the commons, the Clarendon Commons, which is great. Don't get me wrong. That gets us, quite a while. The public space that this building provides will get us further away. So that said, I support the motion. I still think that the public art, we need to think along the lines of the master plan. I think the master plan says public art will be a tool of placemaking, creating meaningful connections between people and places, important to civic life. This is for me, a very, very strong statement. I do think that we have to work really very, very carefully on the Ladybug Academy, the childcare operator to figure out a bridge solution when the time comes. I do think that there are a couple of things on the walkable environment. To me, it's still Vision Zero pedestrian safety, a big discussion. A lot of people cross these roads and they are not very, very much respected. We haven't even gotten to put, in my opinion, an adequate number of flashing beacons, especially on Cleveland, etc. I got almost hit twice there. And then for me, also disability. We have people who have more people with special needs. Thinking about the public realm and the pedestrian safety from a point of view of those who have certain disabilities is an important addition to that. So with that, I rest my case and I am ready for a vote. All in favor of the motion of Ms. Coffey, seconded by Mr. Spain, please say aye.
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously. Thank you very, very much. Congratulations. We hope we continue to work together as the building will have many more parts of public inputs,
Thank you.
when the rubber hits the road with real construction. Thank you. And thank you, everybody, for coming today. 1 minute and to change the guard here. No, not even a minute, 30 seconds? Okay, Mr. Deputy Clerk, please call the next item.
Yes, sir. Number 44, SPLN 22-00010, site plan SP number 471 at Inn of Roslyn, 1601 Fairfax Drive. This is the rezoning from an S-3A special district to RA 6-15, multiple family dwelling district for a portion of Fairfax Drive. This also is a site plan with 22-00010, SP number 471 to construct a multifamily building of up to 141 dwelling units with modifications to permit additional density, reduced residential parking ratio, one-way drive aisle width, density exclusions, and other modifications necessary to achieve the proposed development located at 1601 Fairfax Drive and a portion of Fairfax Drive. This also is an ordinance to vacate a portion of an existing easement for public sidewalk, utilities, and drainage purposes on a portion of the property owned by 1601 Fairfax Drive, LLC, located at 1601 Fairfax Drive.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Mr. Manager, the floor is yours.
Yes, Mr. Fusarelli has promised me he will take less time than Mr. Davis.
Thank you, and good afternoon again. While the proposed site plan and associated actions for this item were legally advertised for a public hearing by the board and its final consideration today, as of yesterday, September 12th, staff received a letter from the applicant requesting a deferral of these items until January 2026. As such, staff supports this request and is now recommending via a supplemental report that was published yesterday that the proposed rezoning, site plan, and ordinance to vacate as part of item 44 be deferred for consideration in January. That concludes staff's presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Fusarelli. The applicant, Mr. Cummings?
Sure. I'll just very briefly add, I think that was well said. We do have a lot of support in the community that we've built up, and I just want to be clear to everybody who might be listening today who I haven't been able to reach yet that I think we're in good shape and we're going to move this thing forward. And we're really, really thankful to everybody who has worked on this project, both staff, planning commission, board, everybody in the community who's been involved since the beginning, especially Mr. Arminsky and Mr. Stein. But I think we've got a path forward still, and so I want everyone to know that we're not at all looking at something that is a failure. We're moving forward successfully. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cummings. Any input from our commission's advisory brothers? Ms. Steinberger, I don't want to put you on the spot.
Sorry. Now that this is a deferral item, I think we'll just be reconvening on this in January. There was certainly a much larger conversation, I think, that happened within the Planning Commission in the context of motions, and there were several motions and sort of really a philosophical debate as to what the nature of our role as a Planning Commission is. It was fascinating. But I think that that's not really material now that this is being deferred. So I will let whoever is representing Planning Commission in January or February address this. So
right.
Thank you.
That goes with thanks and gratitude for the thorough work of the Planning Commission so far on this item. Mr. Clerk, do we have public testimony on this?
Yes, we do, Chair Karen Tonis. We have 2 individuals for 3-minute comments, starting with Stuart Stein, who was in person, followed by Steve Cole, who was also in person.
Good afternoon. Mrs. Stein.
Hello, my name is Stuart Stein, and I'm here speaking as an individual. I understand that you will be deferring this site plan, but I thought I would leave you with a few thoughts before next year's meeting. I worked on the Fort Myer Heights North Plan for many years of very difficult negotiations. This plan has served us well, and it continues to do so. It is very important to my community. It should be remembered that the plan was not initiated to incentivize redevelopment. Instead, it was an attempt to protect the neighborhood from both Roslyn and Courthouse. The plan recognized that this was a distinct and separate area, in no way just a part of the R&B corridor. The goal was not 125 feet in height. The absolute maximum was 125 feet. The goal was not a density above 3.24 FAR. It was something that was allowed for very specific reasons. We lost much of the original vision and hopes that we had for Fairfax Drive in order to preserve the community. We understood the difficulties with the Inn of Roslyn site were to be developed apart from the rest of the block. It is an orphan site with many constraints and difficulties. I believe that an ideal building would require a large portion of the site dedicated to open space and the density to be greatly reduced. I doubt this will happen. This project, however, contributes to affordable housing and provides numerous trees where neither currently exists. The loss of affordable housing was one of the main concerns that led to the Fort Myers Heights North study and then the plan. This project also offers a possible solution for an orphan site that may actually get built. I also wanted to say that I greatly appreciate the concern of the staff. It is heartwarming to see them speak up for my community and the importance of the Fort Myers Heights North Plan, its goals, and its vision. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stein. The next speaker, you.
Yes, the next speaker is, Steve Cole.
Is that online?
It's in person. Not here.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Thank you very much.
Don't see Mr. Cole
I don't see him
in the
either
room.
online. Either.
So then, if there is no other speaker, I would like to, the discussion will be with the board, and I would like to invite Ms. Vice Chair Deferranti for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that the county board defer an application to rezone an approximately 3,000 square foot portion of Fairfax Drive right-of-way proposed to be vacated to the January 2026 county board meeting. I also move that we defer an application for a new site plan to permit the construction of an 8-story multifamily building with up to 141 dwelling units with modifications of use regulations for additional density, reduced residential parking ratio, one-way drive aisle width, density exclusions, and other modifications necessary to achieve the proposed development located at 1601 Fairfax Drive and a portion of Fairfax Drive proposed to be vacated. I also move that we defer the ordinance to vacate, one, a portion of an existing easement for public sidewalk utilities and drainage purposes on a portion of the property owned by 1601 Fairfax Drive LLC located at that same address, a portion of the Fairfax, and second, with respect to vacation, a portion of the Fairfax Drive right-of-way abutting the southern border boundary of the parcel identified above to the January 2026 county board meeting. That's my motion.
Thank you, Mr. Deferranti. And second?
Second.
It's seconded by Ms. Cunningham. It's moved and seconded. I conferred with Vice Chair Deferranti. There's no point in the type of the motion is such that we don't need to argue on this or to speak on that. If there is no objection, I would call for a vote. All in favor of the motion of Vice Chair Deferranti, please say aye. Aye. No opposing. The motion carries unanimously. So the item is deferred to the January board meeting, January 2026 board meeting. And with that, and if there's no other objection, Mr. Clerk, I don't think there are any other items coming before the board.
There are no additional items.
And with that, then we are recessed until Tuesday. Thank you.